Welcome, and I'm not going to do the welcomes, I'm just going to say welcome, and I'm going to do the official welcomes. I'm going to turn it over here in just a moment. So I want to start off with a welcome from our host city, the city of Claremont. We have Councilwoman Diane Travis. She's going to say a few opening remarks.
Good morning again, and welcome to Claremont, the choice of champions. My name is Diane Travis. I'm a city council member, I'm a real estate broker, and I'm a competitive duathlete, so cycling is one of my many passions. On behalf of the city of Claremont, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And there's a special thanks to TJ, the MPO, the Chamber Alliance, and the Lake County Board of County Commissioners for hosting this special event. I think we all recognize the impact that the cycling will have on our community here in Claremont and South Lake County. As some of you know, we are in the middle of the proposed coast-to-coast connector. We're 101 miles exactly to the Gulf and 101 miles to the Atlantic Ocean, and we're inviting everyone to meet us in the middle. I want to add a special thanks to the Chamber, Shannon Hidalgo, South Lake Hospital, cycling enthusiasts, bike shop owners, and all of you for helping us get the designation, working on and obtaining the bicycling friendly community designation that we were awarded this year. I'm sure that designation played an important role in South Lake being named the Florida Bicycle Friendly Community of the Year. We thank the Florida Bicycle Association, who is represented here today, for that honor. We have a lot of important information, so I'll turn it back over to TJ.
Thank you very much, Diane. We do have several partners. The MPO put this together, and I'll recognize my team here in a moment, but our partners include the Chamber Alliance of Lake County, and that includes 8 chambers of commerce in Lake County. So I'd like to have Jim Miller come up for just a moment and make some remarks on behalf of the business community.
Thanks, DJ. Well, the Chamber Alliance, this is TJ's idea that we have our meeting down here to join in on it. We just jumped at the chance. The chambers get that cycling and trails is wonderful for the economy. And I happen to be a commercial realtor. I sold in Leesburg, and my wife and I just got some bikes, they're the kinds with the coaster brakes. We're up to a mile now. So, but anyway, I'm looking forward to this presentation.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you for your leadership on the Chamber Alliance. Next up, our other partner is Lake County Board of County Commissioners. I know we have Commissioner Sullivan here this morning. Where did you go? I saw you. There you are. Thank you for being here, Commissioner Sullivan. And we have Commissioner Parks to come up and make some remarks on behalf of the County Commission.
Thank you, DJ. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. On behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I'd like to welcome you to this awesome summit that we're having here this morning. Look at the turnout. That's incredible. So just really appreciate, as you're one of your county commissioners, and appreciate Commissioner Sullivan coming and joining us too this morning. Just really appreciate being a small part of this. Just wanted to relay to you that we are committed to helping the cities reach their goals and becoming more cycling and pedestrian friendly. We're very much committed to this trail connection, to this coast-to-coast trail, and all the trail projects that will connect to it throughout Lake County. We realize that this is something that's incredibly important, just for helping people be more healthy, but also for ecotourism and business as well. So it all fits together. It's something that we want to be a part of, and we're here to help. So enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Oh, and Ray Good Game wanted me to tell you that the parking, Claremont will start charging you for parking after an hour. So you only have parking, free parking for an hour.
That'll help cycling. Ride your bike to downtown.
Exactly.
All right. And, again, I appreciate Commissioner Parks and Commissioner Sullivan, both always consistent, supportive of transportation issues. I want to bring up First, before I bring him up, our chair this year of the MPO, Ray Goodgame, I wanted to recognize I've got a couple other board members. Commissioner Parks and Sullivan are on the MPO board, and also Evelyn Wilson from the city of Groveland. Where are you, Evelyn? There you are in the back. Thank you. And alternate from the city of Groveland is Dina Sweat. I know you're here. Good morning. Anybody else on the MPO that I missed when you came in? Gail Ash is here. Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad to see you. She's also an alternate for the city of Claremont. So, Ray Goodgame, would you come up and make some opening remarks? I'd like for you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, too.
You probably have enough welcomes, but we do welcome you here. The crowd is outstanding. Maybe the next one we have down here will have to be held at the other building where we can seat about 1,000 people. So this is growing. We're going to see some changes. We're a bicycle-friendly city now, but when we do our new master plan, the trail may change a little bit and come up more into the city. So there's a lot of exciting things happening here in Claremont, and keep your eyes open. I guess we are wheeler dealers, but two-wheelers. So it's a great pleasure to have you all here today. And if you will stand, please, I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Thank you, Chairman Goodgame. I really appreciate the turnout. There's been a lot of interest. I appreciate the coverage that was in the local media. That's certainly helped. The interest that we have in this topic is great. Lake County has adopted Real Florida, Real Close as its tagline for branding, and this is certainly part of that, looking at the ecotourism opportunities of cycling and our regional trail system. Before I move on, I wanted to also recognize South Lake Chamber. Ray Sanfratillo's at the back of the room running around with his team. Ray, thank you for your help on this event today. And I think that's all the thank yous and welcomes we have to do. We can actually jump into the topic now, so let's do that. I want to start off with what's happening in Lake County. I've got a couple things to show you real quick. Again, what we're going to talk about is, what's built, what's planned and forthcoming, and what else can we do beyond that to make all this connect and work together. All right, so we're going to zoom in here for the South Lake Trail. And I'm going to do the best I can, moving this mouse around. And Francis may get to come up here and help me if I need help. All right, if you'll take a look there, this is what's happening through South Lake County. We've got built already from the West Orange Trail, which extends all the way to Apopka at this point. We now have the trail extended another 3.5 miles as it comes into Lake County. It's the South Lake Trail. It enters the city of Mineola on the old rail bed. It's the Mineola Scenic Trail. It enters Claremont along the lake shore, South Lake Trail, and then at Hiawatha Preserve, the ribbon cutting just occurred. The beautiful bridge there at County Road 561. Thank you, Lake County Public Works, Jim Snyder and his team for managing that contract to get that 3.5 mile section now open to Silver Eagle Road at South Lake High School. So you can see in the green what's built, the little piece with the arrow to it is what just opened, and then look what we're about to do. And this is the primary goal. We've got some issues that I'll explain in a moment, and actually I'm going to have Natalie explain some of the issues with what's happening in Sumter County. But our real goal, right off the bat, is can we get to that Van Fleet Trail and connect to that state trail that extends down into Polk County to Plant City. And why is that important? Because now, between what's built in West Orange and South Lake and then that Van Fleet, you now have a long enough distance where you're attracting those serious riders. Not that we're not already attracting people to use the trail, but when you can go 100 miles on a trail, that's when people start taking it very seriously and coming from greater distances. So that's one of the goals, and of course, we'll talk about coast to coast here in a moment. So under design right now, let me pause for a moment. From Silver Eagle Road at South Lake High School, the Florida Department of Transportation, at the request of the MPO, they are now going back to the original study and the design before they go in, and they are going to purchase the right-of-way for us to get the trail extended from South Lake High School at Silver Eagle Road down to 50 and then over towards State Road 33. Now, as you get into downtown Groveland, the trail is going to be part of the State Road 50 realignment project. And there's a great aerial back there on the back table that shows exactly what downtown Groveland is to look like. That project is nearing completion of its design. It'll be finished as far as the engineering work this coming year. And DOT, we have a request in of DOT that as soon as the funds are available, we want them to buy the right-of-way in Groveland for both State Road 50 and the trail. And when the State Road 50 realignment project is built in Groveland, the trail will be built at the same time. So we have married a roadway project and coast-to-coast trail in downtown Groveland very purposely so that we can accelerate both needs as quickly as possible. So beyond that, at Villa City Road, County Road 565, through Mascot on into Sumter County to the Van Fleet, that project is going to be designed. So it's already been studied. We know that we want to use the rail bed as much as feasible, the historic rail bed that, by the way, does not belong to the railroad anymore. So we have to deal with the fact that that rail bed reverted to private property ownership, and that'll be an issue in terms of the right-of-way acquisition for the trail. But again, the goal is to get on through Mascot to Sumter County and connect to that Van Fleet State Trail. So that's the current status of what's happening right here. I'm going to now turn it over to Natalie. Natalie Sooner is the project manager for the study that's underway for what's happening in South Sumter County. And I'm going to attempt to get her presentation up. It looks like I did. Okay, this is where I screwed up. Get started.
Thank you, TJ, and good morning. This is a great day to be here talking to you all about the update. There's lots of enthusiasm and buzz generating about the Coast to Coast Trail. I'm Natalie Sunier, as TJ mentioned. I'm part of the VHB study team that's working with District 5, the FDOT office, on conducting the feasibility study for the South Sumter Connector Trail. John Moore is our project manager and unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, but does send his regards. This is our contact information. I also have a couple handouts up here at the Lake Sumter MPO table for you to grab on your way out. But just to give you some regional context, and I'm sure you've heard this and I'm preaching to the choir here, but the coast to coast South Sumter gap that we're studying is this small area here dotted in red, but it's part of a much larger regional multi-use trail network that spans from the Gulf of Mexico and Pinellas County to Brevard County and the Atlantic Ocean. Our study area, just to take a closer look here, is approximately 19.5 miles. This southern alignment here starts at the Van Fleet Trailhead on County Road 772. It's a dense canopy road in Woodlands. It parallels State Road 50 here before it goes into the Withlacoochee Forest. And then it connects in Pasco County to County Road 575 and meets the Withlacoochee Trail on the southern end here. Both alternatives, as TJ mentioned, are being driven by an abandoned railroad bed, which across the country are being used to transform old railroad beds into world-class multi-use trail facilities. The northern extension here crosses State Road 50 and enters the towns of Center Hill and Webster, and then connects to County Road 673, crossing the border here at the Withlacoochee River and ending at the Withlacoochee Trail. This northern alignment would provide an eastward extension for the Good Neighbor Trail in Hernando County and a westward extension from the South Lake Trail. Now, we're ramping up our data collection efforts, so we're just getting started. But in the meantime, we've had a chance to meet with stakeholders in the area. We've learned a lot throughout the process. For example, this area down here is currently being operated as a mining operation by Midcoast Aggregates. This intersection at 471 and 50, the railroad bed is owned by Robbins Lumber Manufacturing. So we already know we're going to have to start making adjustments to the alignments you see here. And the county has been very supportive of utilizing the right-of-way along County Road 469. That would mean we're moving the northern extension further east, avoiding some of the unlimited areas here because of the mining operations. This alignment here on 469 would have us going further up north into downtown Center Hill. All right, this is just a brief overview of our corridor planning process. We are in phase 1, stakeholder outreach mode. We are kicking off our public meeting, which is going to be held on May 7th in the city of Webster at the Florida Grand RV Park. There's a handout on here that has more details on that location and the timing. We're currently meeting with stakeholders. We're commencing our existing conditions report, and following that, we will be developing our purpose and needs statement. And at the conclusion of the study, we'll provide a final report which provides detailed, viable alternative for the trail component in South Sumter County. I keep forgetting that my clicker isn't working. Just to outline our public involvement plan, this is going to ensure that an appropriate level of public involvement is achieved throughout the course of the study. There are 4 overarching goals that create the framework for our public involvement efforts. And public involvement is about building credibility, building understanding, and building consensus amongst our stakeholders. So it's critical that we reach out to our stakeholders early and continuously. We want to give ample opportunity and target those underserved populations, make sure that they have a voice and understand the different needs and issues throughout the study process. And we want our information to be accessible from any time at any place. We have a project website on CFO Roads which provides an overview of our study area, and this is also going to be the hub where you can go to find more information on upcoming meetings. Our study is an 18-month project that commenced in January and is scheduled to end June of 2016. The red tiles that you see here are the milestones for major project milestones. The agency kickoff was held last month in February. We had a high rate of attendance and a very successful meeting with agency representatives. We are in the process of conducting our stakeholder interviews, and our advisory group has already been assembled. This is going to be a special advisory board that provides guidance and direction to the DOT and the VHB study team. We have a meeting scheduled with them next month. And following that will be our first public kickoff on May 7th. So we encourage you all to help us spread the word and generate a buzz about the study. After that, we'll go back to the office, scrub the data, and reconvene with our PAG in December. And that's when we'll have made adjustments and refinements to the alignments. In January, we will be going back to the public with alternatives development workshop, and that's when we'll present the viable alternative based on our recommendations. And then in June, the project will conclude and there will be a final report developed. This is more information about our public kickoff. It's May 7th in the city of Webster. Doors open at 4:45, and there will be a formal presentation starting at 5 p.m. and we'll be there up until 6:30. And lastly, if you want more information, if you want to know how you can get involved in the Coast to Coast study, this is my contact information. John Moore's our project manager, and our website is listed below on CFO Roads. If you search for the South Sumter Trail, you should find a link to our site. And with that, I will open it up and take any questions you have. Okay, thank you.
We're building a story here, so be patient with us as we start piecing all this together, because by the time we show you all the pieces, you'll understand the magnitude of what's happening. And maybe I'll learn how to use this computer along with it. All right, I'm looking for, and maybe Francis's help, I'm looking for our coast-to-coast graphic, which is just Lake County. So I have a friend from the Office of Greenways and Trails that I'd like to bring up here, Brian Lusker. He's been very helpful in organizing nine counties, a whole bunch of MPOs from Brevard, Volusia, Seminole, Orange, Lake Sumter, Hernando, Pasco, Pinellas. So he's helping herd the cats. So we're going to have him go over the progress that's being made on Coast to Coast and then we're going to tie all that into the bigger picture. Maybe. This is the one thing, normally I'll just keep talking, but this is one of those days, I'm like, just work. What's the title of this, Brian? All right, now we're good. All right, Brian. Talk about Coast to Coast.
Thank you, TJ. Just as a quick reminder, my name is Brian Ruscher. I'm here with the Office of Greenways and Trails. I'm a regional coordinator for the office. What our office does is help to connect communities to one another via trails, long-distance trails for recreational purposes. A couple of years ago, we had an interesting conversation with the MPOs along the Coast to Coast Connector who came together to discuss a project which would connect the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic Ocean. What you see before you is that project, and I can tell you it's moving very fast. As TJ mentioned, there are 7 MPOs, 9 counties, 2 DOT districts, 20 multi-use trails that are going to connect St. Petersburg all the way over to Titusville and the Atlantic Ocean. I'm going to give you just a very, very brief overview of where we are on the project as a whole. So I'll start over in St. Petersburg County and move east. As you can tell, the majority of Pinellas County is constructed. And that which is not in Pinellas County, this little blue section just north of Tarpon Springs is funded for design. So we're looking at probably by the end of 2017, the completion of the first portion of the Coast to Coast Connector Trail using the St. Pinellas Trail and connecting up north on the Tri-County Trail. Just north of that, the Starkey Gap will be under design here very shortly. They're going to be using a utility easement to connect north into the Starkey Wilderness Preserve. For those who haven't been at the Starkey Wilderness Preserve, I highly recommend it. Parallels for the most part. The straight line is the Suncoast Parkway along the Suncoast Trail. So you have access to a very large outdoor recreation and nature preserve, which you can go and do wildlife viewing and education. Very, very rich natural experience in that area. Continuing north along the Suncoast Parkway, you will eventually reach the point where you're going to hit about State Road 50, what we call the Good Neighbor Gap. This gap, for the most part, the alignment is determined from here till from Suncoast Parkway until about this area right here. Once you get east of there, the alignment for the most part is determined, and it will be undergoing a project design and environmental study just to ensure that the trail isn't going to be flooding all the time, because we don't want people riding from Claremont to Burkesville to find it to be very wet. Continuing east out of there, you have a very small portion of the Good Neighbor Trail which is existing, and then a portion which is funded for design, which will be complete by the end of next year. And from there, you will connect to the Withlacoochee State Trail. I'll go ahead and say this: the Withlacoochee State Trail is actually a 40-mile trail, which goes to about Dates City, just north of Dates City, up to about Inverness. It's a 40-mile trail, state trail with full facilities that will be able, free parking and whatnot for anybody that's on the coast to coast. And of course, going east from either this point or this point into Sumter County is the South Sumter Connector Gap, as Natalie just briefly described, so I'm not going to go into too much more detail. And then of course, the South Lake Gap, which TJ went into more detail on earlier. A recently completed portion in Claremont, South Lake Trail Extension, and all the way over to Winter Garden, east to about Cody Road. As was stated before, this is a very long recreational opportunity. Excuse me. Continuing north up through Orlando, we have the Orange Gaps. There are 2 segments of the trail that are considered gaps in this area. One very short section is about only a half a mile of gap, and then about 1.5 miles here. This small portion is funded for design, and this one is funded for project design and environmental. So it's going through an environmental study as well as how the project is going to be laid out. Continuing northward, there are some other small sections which are funded for design here and here near the Lake Marion Reinhardt Road area. There's a pretty complicated bridge connection at the Seminole and Volusia County border at Lake Monroe, which is funded for design this year. And then from there, you follow the Spring to Spring Trail all the way over to the East Central Regional Rail Trail. The East Central Regional Rail Trail in Volusia County and Brevard is funded for completion from here to here. It's about 25 miles approximately, gap that's going to be constructed within hopefully the next few years, but it's all funded for construction already. So the East Central Regional Rail Trail, I will note, also connects up to Edgewater North here. There are 2 gaps remaining for me to cover very briefly: the Space Coast Center Gap and then the Space Coast Downtown Connector Gap. This downtown area in Titusville, just trying to find a way to get over State Road 406. And then one of the more complicated areas on the coast to coast is the Kennedy Space Center Gap. And the reason that this is such a complicated gap that provides a lot of recreational opportunities is that there are 3 different federal agencies involved on this gap in particular: NASA, the National Park Service, and the National Fish and Wildlife Service, each having their own requirements for trail design and study. So once that's done, you'll be able to complete about a 250-mile ride, west or east, and of course, meet in the middle at Claremont and in Lake County. As I said before, there's a lot of different challenges, a lot of different opportunities. We're happy to see Lake County jumping on board and doing one of the first real eco summits for the Coast to Coast Connector out of all the metropolitan planning organizations, all the counties, all the various managers involved. So that's all I've got. Do you have any questions for me or for our office? I'm going to be able to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Office of Greenways and Trails Foundation, so if you want to pull Brian aside and ask any questions, feel free. I wanted to point out a couple things while the map's up here, that there is no coast-to-coast connector without Lake and Sumter involved, so that's why we're having this today. And as we work with DOT, what we're used to traditionally is we make a funding request for a road, and it's a big deal to get it into what they call the 5-year program. If you're in that 5-year program, then you know that something's actually going to happen. You have a project that funding is coming. With trails, though, DOT typically only programs years 1 and 2. They don't really use those outer years to program. However, on coast to coast, they've done something different. I updated you what's happening here locally, that what just got built and opened, the ribbon cutting just last month, what's about to happen with the update of the design and the right-of-way acquisition into Groveland. I've told you about the downtown Groveland with the State Road 50 alignment, and then on to Mascot and the Van Fleet, that's under design this year. Well, what DOT is now in the process of doing is saying, well, let's go ahead and program the next pieces. So we'll be looking at construction funding from Silver Eagle Road to downtown Groveland. And at some point, we'll have the announcement that the right-of-way Groveland is funded for both the trail and the road. And then we'll have programming of right-of-way acquisition funding to get from Mascot onto the Van Fleet. Just as now in South Sumter, there's an analysis occurring that leads to a project development and environment study. That's going to lead to design of the trail through Sumter, and then that's going to lead to right-of-way construction. So we're working our way through the process. DOT has taken very good care of us here locally, as well as the 9 counties involved. So this has been a monumental undertaking. And it was just two and a half years ago, I sat down with Rich Dunkel. Where are you, Rich? Rich Dunkel's a major advocate for cycling and trail system, and he got Dale Allen, who's a part of the Greenways and Trails Foundation. Mike will talk about that here in a minute. Mike Woods on the NPO team. We sat down for lunch and started talking about this idea of closing the gaps. And when Dale enumerated all these pieces of trail that exist out there, and if we could just close the gaps and connect it all, look how much has already been invested. So what if we close the gaps? Well, I said, it's funny because NPOs actually do talk to each other. So Lake Sumter, our 2 counties, we talk to Metro Plan Orlando, which is the NPO for Seminole and Orange and Osceola. And we talk to Volusia. It's now the River to Sea TPO. It's Volusia and Flagler. And then Space Coast TPO is Brevard. And then our neighbors to the west, we don't talk as frequently, but Hernando now has an NPO with Citrus County, and Pasco has an NPO with Pinellas. Well, the Central Florida group of the 5 NPOs over here, we got together a couple of years ago and asked our elected officials, what if we approved a regional list of priorities? And let's not try to prioritize everything, but what if we did major facilities like I-4, I-95, I-75? And they said, well, that's a good idea. And we said, well, what about regional transit like Sunrail? And they said, well, that's a good idea. Then we said, what about regional trails like coast to coast? And I was shocked. They said, that's not just a great idea, that's a historic idea. We've never done anything like that. So the MPO Alliance here in Central Florida, which represents more than 4 million people, they voted to prioritize the DOT, get this coast-to-coast thing done. And the Lake Sumter MPO, my board said, y'all can have the highway money, we want the trail money. Because we're good on roads over here. We don't need more roads widened, except for Roseland, with that realignment done. So I wanted to mention the process, how the sausage is made that the public doesn't normally see, even though these are sunshine meetings. Things are happening the way they're supposed to. It's very exciting. I wanted to recognize the mayor from Webster came in, Kelly Williams, where are you at now? I was recognizing MPO board members. I wanted to recognize you, Webster, over in Suffolk County, very interested in where the coast-to-coast trail ends up. So we appreciate her interest. So I'm going to have Mike come up here. He's going to keep us moving. He's going to steer while I talk. We're going to jump into the big picture. And you thought we were already talking big picture, we're going bigger picture. So pretty exciting to see a 275-mile trail about to be connected from the National Seashore near Titusville all the way to St. Petersburg. And it's great that right here in Claremont, you can meet in the middle between the two actual coasts. Now, because the Pinellas Trail system is so extensive down south into St. Petersburg, I think the actual middle of the trail itself may be just a little bit west of here, but I love the fact that Claremont Choice of Champions has jumped on this and already saying meet us in the middle. I love that. There's some other things being planned. You know, there's a trails master plan for Lake County, and we've got some snippets out there that are already built. In Leesburg, for example, we have in the core of Leesburg, we've got some nice pieces that are built that we love to connect. From Tavares to Leesburg, with a gap from the mall, the Lake Square Mall area, over to downtown Leesburg, you know, the Tapley Trail is already built halfway. We'd love to see that thing continued on into Leesburg. That would be a great connectivity. There's a trailhead in Wooten Park in downtown Tavares, and I asked the city of Tavares, you know, you've got this trailhead, you've got a piece of trail that runs out toward Leesburg. So what are you going to connect to? Because it's really up to Leesburg to get the Tapley Trail connected onto downtown, but it's up to Tavares to get connected from Tavares onto Mount Dora. And why is that important? Because once you get to Mount Dora and Lake County are heavily into the planning stages of using the old rail bed that crosses over US 441, including the bridge, and using that rail bed to connect to the coast-to-coast trail from Mount Dora. Quietly, we are working in partnership with the city of Apopka. Now, Brian showed you a map earlier that says, you know, we're going to use the West Orange Trail to a point, and then we're going to go through, and this is the official coast-to-coast. We're going to go through urban Orlando, Pine Hills, Claricona, connect to Seminole County, where most of that's already built. Well, quietly, Apopka, in partnership with us, we're working on getting that West Orange Trail extended from downtown Apopka north, connecting in with the Wekiva Parkway project in Lake County, connecting to our Wekiva Trail that's coming out of Mount Dora, which connects not only to the West Orange Trail, it's a T. It's like an east to west and then a north-south. The east to west connects from Mount Dora to Seminole County. The north-south connects south into Orange County to the West Orange Trail. What we're quietly doing without even saying it, except I'm saying it, is that we're going to have a coast-to-coast trail in Lake County. It's going to come from Seminole County into East Lake County, where Camp Challenge and the Wekiva Parkway project is under construction, and you're going to be able to come into Lake County and then onto the West Orange Trail and have a much more natural coast-to-coast experience through the Wekiva Greenway area than if you went through Pine Hills. And candidly, that's exactly what we're planning is we know once we get that connection made, people will use it. And Mount Dora, with all the B&Bs, all the restaurants, great location along the way for ecotourism opportunities. So, what are we doing first, Mike? We got, he's shown you the blue, it's the West Orange. He showed you all those connections that we're looking at in East Lake. Heart of Florida. This is one that you think coast to coast is exciting. It is. But did you know this Heart of Florida loop is under construction to the point where most of it's already built or will soon be open? And what this is, it's using the Withlacoochee State Trail to our west, which is kind of a north-south or southeast to northwest, over in Citrus County, using the Greenway into Marion. It's under construction now. Was it 25 miles? 35 miles of trail under construction in Marion County in that natural Greenway area. And then all of that's going to connect to a planned trail along State Road 40, back into Lake, into Volusia, the Black Bear Trail, through the Ocala National Forest, And that creates a loop that includes the coast to coast as the bottom portion, and then the loop is a whole new opportunity for ecotourism. And we have a partner with Marion County, very exciting. Involution, that we're all working on this. The DOT will be doing the study through the forest in the coming years, and we'll move through that same process of studying it, designing it, getting the right-of-way. Whoa, right-of-way, we're in the national forest. This is one time you don't have to worry about right-of-way. So we get to work with the agencies and have the trail not on State Road 40, but in the State Road 40 corridor, taking a more naturalistic approach of how we get through the forest. So that's a very exciting project. Next one that we want to show is the Lake County Trails Master Plan. So, in the master plan, we've talked a lot about what's happening in South Lake. Y'all know what a development of regional impact is? It's a really big entitled development that you have to go through a state process. And we've got two of them sitting in Mineola. One of them is the future home of the soon-to-be-open in 2018 Mineola interchange on the Turnpike. That's Hills of Mineola. And just north of that is the Sugarloaf DRI. And so those have a right to develop whenever they're ready per market conditions to develop. Well, the reason I'm bringing all this up is there is a Mineola interchange coming. It's not being planned, it's being designed, and it's going to be under construction soon. That DRI, the Hills of Mineola, around that interchange, once you provide that access, probably that property is ready to develop at that point at some pace. Well, as that property develops, we're going to connect the South Lake Trail north through that area, on through the Sugarloaf DRI, connect that into what we're doing with the Lake Apopka loop around Lake Apopka. So there's already trail on the north shore of Lake Apopka that connects over to the West Orange Trail in Apopka. And then we want to be able to connect all that to what's already happening in North Lake with Ocala Trail, with the Tav Lee Trail, the fact that there's a concept that hasn't been studied yet of connecting from the triangle up to that Black Bear Trail in the Ocala National Forest or on to Ocala itself. So a lot of opportunities. We want to be able to connect Leesburg, Fluton Park, Lady Lake, get what's already built in Leesburg connected to that Heart of Florida loop that I just showed you. That's just between Lady Lake and Ocala. So these pieces are built. These other pieces are being planned, and they're either in concept phase, they're being studied, they're being designed. Everything is moving at a pace. So very quickly, all of this is to reverse Florida's atrocious reputation of being the most unsafe for cyclists and pedestrians in the country, doing these type of projects. And we've got the funds finally in place to be able to do that. So with that said, I think I hit everything I wanted to. I want to turn it over to Mike to talk about a not-for-profit foundation that was created to help guide this effort, the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation.
I'm Michael Woods. I work for TJ. But I'm also a board member for the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation. I have another board member here with me, Robert, from Professional Consulting. And together, we're on an 8-person board, and our mission is to complete a statewide system of greenways and trails for the state of Florida. We're kind of an advocacy group for the OGT. We're also the citizen support organization for the Cross River Greenway. So we do the things that OGT and the Cross River Greenway can't do. We advocate, lobby, and really help support and help them implement their vision of a statewide system of greenways and trails. TJ touched on the Close the Gaps initiative. You know, don't dismiss the power of the messaging. The Close the Gaps really helps solidify this effort. Citizens, elected officials, they got it once we talked about closing the gaps, showed them what was on the ground. This just made sense. And so when we're planning for ecotourism in Lake County, make sure we have a good message that really resonates with our locals and our visitors to the area. This is the Priority Trails Network that we're trying to implement for the state of Florida. It includes paved multi-use trails, natural surface hiking trails, and the a statewide paddling trail system. This is I kind of call this our long-range trail program, kind of taking the acronym from the NPO world. This is our LRTP for the state of Florida. About 2,000 miles of paved, multi-use trails that we're considering this our 20-year plan. TJ talked about this, last year with the coordination with the MPOs. We kind of set the template of how these big regional trails can work, and I'm glad to be part of that locally. That we're setting the template for the rest of the state. We have better coordination and cooperation with our MPOs, our neighboring MPOs than they do in the rest of the state. And so, DOT, we allow DOT to make this a fast-track project with our coordination, our prioritization of this project. It was really important, and it really made this happen. Go to the next slide here. Today's topic is the economic impact of these trails. Everyone loves our local trails, but they usually just attract our local residents. Trails from 5 to 30 miles, they attract local users and day use activities. 30 to 100 miles, you might get some weekend travelers to the area and to use your trail. Once you start getting over 100 miles, then you're getting some national visitors and even some international visitors come to the area. Last year we had 93 million visitors to Florida. Two most frequently comments from TDCs are, when will the connector be finished? Why didn't you do this quicker? So I think we're on the right track with Close the Gaps and the Coast to Coast Connector Trail. Tourism generates about 23% of our local dollars. Bicycling is the third most important outdoor recreational activity when they're surveying our visitors to the area. I wanted to kind of give you another graphic of the coast to coast. Here's all the existing trails on the coast to coast in green there. This is what we started with. Then we just kind of connected the dots, and we came up with the coast to coast trail. Here it is, 250 miles, goes from St. Pete over to Titusville. That was the first big regional trail that we try to lobby for and get some funding for. Highlight some of the gaps. Well, we have 10 of these big regional trails across the state. The next one we're trying to promote is the Northeast Connector. Here's the existing trail corridors from Volusia and DeLand all the way up north of Jacksonville. And we connect the dots. Here's our next big regional connector. We've done some preliminary work up there. Basically what we've done, we've got everyone at the table, getting all the trail advocacy groups together, getting talking to each other, getting to plan, how do we fund these gaps, how do we move this project forward. Kind of on the same template we did for a coast to coast. There it is, Northeast Connector Trail. And it connects to the coast on the southern end also. The other one is the South Coast Connector. It starts at the end of the Pinellas Trail in Tampa. Here's our existing trails in that area, all the way down south of Naples. So we connect those existing trails, we can come up with a Southwest Coast Connector. Very similar to the Northeast Connector and Coast to Coast. It's a series of completed trails with gaps. We did the same thing. We put everyone together in a room. We talked about making these connections happen. And we're a little, the Coast to Coast is a little farther ahead on these ones, but these are our next big pushes to get funded. So what that ends up with is these 3 big regional trails connecting pretty much all of Florida. These are our next priorities after the Coast to Coast. And I keep telling my foundation, we have to finish Coast to Coast first, we do too much on the other ones. So that is a truly regional, statewide connector trail. So let me go through our top 10. This is our 20-year, 2,000-mile plan. We have Coast to Coast, the Northeast Connector Trail, Southwest Connector Trail, Florida Keys Overseas Heritage Trail, which I think 80% of that is complete at this point. Heart of Florida Loop Trail, which TJ touched on, which we're really close on this one. As soon as we finish that State Road 40 gap and the gap in the Cross Florida Greenway, it's pretty much complete. State Road 40 trail gap is funded in 2020 for study, so it's our next big regional trail here in Central Florida. St. Johns River Sea Loop, this is our Volusia County partners. Gator Nation, Old Florida Connector, up in North Florida. The Great Northwest Coastal Trail. River of Grass Greenway. Really interesting trail along Tamamin Trail roadway there. They just finished the PD&E, looking for funding for design and right-of-way next. Then the East Coast Greenway, up along the east coast of Florida. So those are our top 10 trails for Florida. Like I said, this is our 20-year plan. Currently, Amendment 1 is being discussed up in Tallahassee. Regional trails are eligible funding project for Amendment 1, and so if you're talking to any of your local officials or local senators, make sure they're including some money for regional trails in Amendment 1 legislation that we're debating right now. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mike. And I want to take a moment, Mike Woods, Pam Richmond at the back of the room, Pam, and then Francis Franco. Where are you, Francis? We're in the camera here. They're the MPO team today helping on this event, and obviously all I do is talk, they do all the work, and I really appreciate that. The breakfast this morning, I want to thank the Holiday Inn Express here, Mr. Cornelius. Thank you for bringing the pastries, and the coffee is great. I know everybody enjoyed the coffee, so thank you for that. Feel free to help yourself as we went along. I want to bring Shannon Hidalgo up. Not only is she and her husband entrepreneurs here in South Lake, but she is on the South Lake Chamber Board and part of the Sports and Tourism Subcommittee, and she's going to talk about the bicycle-friendly community designation, and not just about trails. We're going to talk about cycling, and cycling not on trails.
All right, thank you, TJ, and thank you all for being here today. Pedaling to platinum, this picture right here was actually taken as we were pedaling to bronze. Adam Ashton with Lake County Tourism and another local stakeholder, Kurt Henderson, and ourselves rode the spaces of South Lake with the League of American Bicyclists. The bike-friendly designation that we received is a bronze designation from the League of American Bicyclists. They are the oldest and largest organization dedicated to bicycling. This is the second designation that the South Lake Chamber Sports and Tourism Committee has pursued. The first designation was the runner-friendly community designation from the Road Runners Club of America. Again, the oldest and largest organization dedicated to endurance running. Some have asked why the Chamber of Commerce sought the need to pursue these designations that are oftentimes pursued by bike clubs or running clubs in local communities. And as you will hear from a lot of people today, the reasons are economic, there are health reasons, but more important, our committee has identified that we're going to be experiencing a generational shift and a demographic shift in the next 5 years. That's really going to influence our business community. In the next 5 years, between 30 million and 70 million baby boomers are going to be retiring. So there's this globalized competitive need to attain and retain top talent. And global communities all across the world are positioning themselves to be communities of perpetuity, communities that are sustainable. And how are you sustainable? Well, you attain and you're able to retain your top talent, because now we're competing on a globalized platform. We're not just worried about losing our students who come back to South Lake to Orlando, but we're also worried that they might now telecommute via the internet somewhere in China or India or Russia. So one of the main common themes of these cities of perpetuity is access to multimodal opportunities for transportation. it's very clear that this generational shift wants safe access to biking, to running, to walking spaces, and not necessarily utilizing transit everywhere. Safe spaces for bicycling and running are a natural fit for South Lake. We're a hotbed for athletes from the highest level of Olympians to recreational users. So we already have a lot of great spaces, but we identified a need to change the culture here in South Lake, to shift this conversation to a much broader perspective. So these designations were an opportunity for us to do that. Psychology will tell you that in order to get people to change in any culture, there's two ways you can do it. You can appeal to that inner activist, or you can appeal to that outer conformist. People are much more likely to conform than they are to be an activist. So if we tell everyone we're bike friendly, we're runner friendly, they're much more likely to join in with us on this conversation and want to do those things that make ourselves runner friendly or bike friendly. So the League of American Bicyclists has established this evaluation system known as the 5 E's. When we apply for this designation, we have to identify what we're doing in these 5 areas with respect to engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, evaluation, and planning. When we received the bronze designation, we also did receive a report card. It indicates how well we're doing and where there's opportunity for improvement. South Lake Hospital has been a huge quality community supporter in this effort, and we would be remiss not to acknowledge their leadership in this effort. They definitely walk the walk and talk the talk in terms of their commitment to improving the health and wellness of the people in their communities. Kimberly Couch and Ryan Donovan worked on this application alongside members of the Bike Friendly Community Committee, and we're very grateful for their assistance. Meet us in the middle. So this designation perfectly leverages the City of Clermont's opportunity to brand themselves as a gateway destination for the coast to coast. This goes right in line with our designation because we truly believe that when people come to Disney, they're going to say, I want to do Disney, but I also want to do coast to coast. Likewise, tourism studies are telling us that millennials aren't really interested in the Disney anymore. They want real, raw, authentic opportunities, and we do believe that Clermont is really well poised next to Orlando to be a gateway hub for those folks wanting to participate in ecotourism. So in pedaling to platinum and improving our designation status from bronze to platinum, it's important that we decided that people become the transportation priority here in Lake County, and we're hoping throughout Florida. Florida does have a reputation of being unsafe for bicyclists and pedestrians, and as you'll see here in the picture, South Lake scores considerably higher in the national norm with respect to fatalities and injuries related to motorists and bicycling crashes. The other opportunity that we have is to increase our ridership. We already do have a lot of riders here throughout South Lake. Oftentimes our motorists become quite frustrated because on the weekends there's packs of cyclists. And the research is pretty clear from the American League of Bicyclists that the greater the amount of riders you have, typically the lower amount of crashes and injuries that you have, because people are just much more aware then when they're driving the roads that there are going to be cyclists on the roads as well. So our first opportunity for improvement is engineering. We want to increase the number of arterial streets that have shoulders and bike lanes. In addition, bicycle parking. Bicycle parking is one of the main attributes a community can add in order to increase ridership. If cyclists know that there's a space for them, a territorial space that they can lay claim to, they will increase their ridership and use. And also implementing bicycle boulevards and wayfinding. Wayfinding is a significant opportunity with us as well in order to leverage this coast-to-coast opportunity. Next is encouragement, encouraging the people in our community not to just use cycling as a means of exercise and the cyclists that you see, but using cycling as truly a means of transportation. They say that 70%, I believe, of all trips are typically less than 3 miles in nature, and we want to convert our people to begin to utilize our roads and our spaces for traveling on with their bikes instead of their vehicles. So it's engaging the community through bicycle education programs. We already do have some great bicycle education programs through our local bike shops, but we'd like to expand that outreach effort. It's also promoting our businesses and our schools to become bicycle friendly. For any of our business stakeholders in the room today, being a bicycle friendly business is something any of you can do. It is an application process that you can proceed with, or you can begin to do it even without the formal designation. It's simple things like bike parking in front of your storefront. It's allowing cyclists to use your restroom without purchasing something. It's offering cyclists water or a phone in case of emergency, those types of things. It's also important for our committee to work with our community partners to implement bicycle programs that really support all aspects of our community, from our children to perhaps maybe our older generation who hasn't been on their bike in a while. And one way we can do that is what some other communities are doing is cyclovia. It's where they're closing down streets and they're creating short loops within their communities and really embracing getting back to being on a bicycle and feeling good about doing it. And then, of course, promoting a bike sharing system similar to what Orlando has been successful in implementing in Miami, and also simple things like helmet fittings and bike safety checks. Enforcement. We're really proud of the City of Claremont Police Department. They have been great community supporters through this effort. They actually, Chief Broadway and his staff underwent some specialized bicycle training for their force. One really cool thing that the City of Windermere Police Department is doing is they're writing tickets to children. And these tickets are tickets for a free ice cream at the local ice cream shop. They're rewarding positive behavior with positive reinforcement when children are wearing their helmets and when they're following the rules of the road and on the sidewalk with their bikes. So that's something that we're looking to implement here as well. It's also using targeted, may use full lane enforcement activities. Oftentimes people just aren't aware of what the rules are, and in certain cases, cyclists do have full use of the lane. It's also monitoring, enforcing harassment, and also on the cyclist side, it's enforcing that bicyclists use the right side of the road. Oftentimes, cyclists and runners will believe that it's safer for them to ride against traffic, and it inherently isn't. Education. This is a group of cyclists caught cycling around Blackstill Lake Road, and as you can see, there is a very small, narrow bike lane right there, but you also see the gravel and the dirt right there. And so often people don't know, but those cyclists, there's a subjective allowance that allows them to decide whether or not they feel as though that shoulder right there is safe. And if they don't feel it's safe, they may use the full length of the lane. So our education efforts, it's direct education efforts to better operate on the roads in the presence of bicyclists, getting into our DMVs, our local schools. I know Bike Walk Central Florida shared with us recently that there's some curriculum that they introduce in Orange County to the students and children, so that there's a greater awareness at a foundational level that we're really bringing up these kids to have a better awareness of the rules of the road. It's also expanding our education reach to our community as we're doing today, and collaborating with a greater voices out in the community. We recently met with Bike Walk Central Florida, and we're going to be partnering with them, hopefully, to continue this conversation on a much more regional effort. evaluation and planning. This picture was taken with Bill Nesper. He is the director of the League of American Bicyclists. He came to Claremont and met with us at the National Training Center as we began to plan our application process and decide what it is we wanted to be in the future. One of the things that we need to do as a community is to improve our data collection and our bicycle usage. We really don't have a clear picture of our ridership here at South Lake. Paramount to our effort is to really effectively analyze what is causing the crashes and fatalities here in South Lake, and we want to reduce those within 3 years by 50%. It's also working with our cycling community and our triathlon community so that it's not just about educating our motorists, but it's also educating the athletes who are utilizing the road spaces, who oftentimes can make motorists frustrated. And lastly, considering an economic impact study on bicycling for our community. So I began with why we started doing this at the onset of my presentation, but this really truly is the heart of why we're doing this. It's about everyone in the room. It's about our people, you and everybody sitting around you. And at the top of this, you'll see Harry Nichols. He was the fiance of Councilman Diane Travis, and unfortunately, he was killed by a motorist here in South Lake. The bottom two pictures, fortunately, you'll see our two community members, Kurt Henderson, who's an active stakeholder in the South Lake Chamber of Commerce, and also Kevin Grogan. He owns a bike shop, a multi-sport shop here locally at the National Training Center, Gear for Multisport. So the reason why we're doing this is it's about the people. Both Kurt and Kevin were hit also here in South Lake. Kurt was actually hit and run, and he was left for dead. He spent several weeks in ICU at Orlando Regional, and Kevin Grogan was hit by a dump truck. And as you can see, had it not been for their survival, those little kids would be left without fathers. So it's about the people. So it's about educating everyone and making our spaces as safe as possible so we can work hard for our future generation. And lastly, these are our community partners who make these things possible for the Chamber of Commerce. You know, it's important to go it with others. You see it with Lions. They go it together. They don't go it alone. And we are very grateful to our community partners who are working very hard alongside of us to make South Lake a great space for our future generation. So thank you. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or I'll turn it back over to TJ. Yes, ma'am.
You said that runners are supposed to be going with the traffic also. I thought they were supposed to go against the traffic. What's the law?
You know, I'm not sure about the exact law, but what we've been recommended from the League of American Bicyclists is that runners and bicyclists are supposed to go with the flow of traffic.
Really?
Yeah. But you might want to check on that. Anything else?
All right. Thank you.
So one of the things, you know, I've got a unique perspective of being in a planning role all these years, and when the MPO was created, what's now built with all of our state road, US 27, state road 50, none of that was really built yet. I think there's one piece from Minneola City Hall that had been 6-lane. All that stuff's happened since then. And the reason I bring that up is during that last decade, we were reacting to some very bad decisions in terms of development patterns. Very quickly, South Lake, and it's not just South Lake, it's all over Central Florida, it's all over Florida. Our mantra was, hey, don't sprawl, y'all. And it's real simple. When you do the suburban development pattern, where everything's spread out and you don't accommodate the humans in the right of way, then you don't have a quality of life community. And that is why we're doing this. When Shannon mentioned the psychology of it all that we're putting out there to the public, this is a bicycle-friendly, this is a runner-friendly community. That psychology needs to permeate to all those people living in all those neighborhoods all around this area, that those cyclists have every right to be there. There's no law that says they have to get out of your car's way. They have every right to be there. In fact, they get to take the whole lane if they want to. So part of what we're doing today is that cultural shift, and we're going to talk more about that. But before we get into the cultural shift, let's talk about the money. Let's talk about the economic impact. So I've got Adam Ashton here from Lake County Economic Growth, and he's going to give an overview of the economic impacts of what we're doing.
Thank you, TJ. Again, my name is Adam Ashton. I'm the Sports Development Coordinator for the Economic Development and Tourism Division of the new Economic Growth Department. So I was asked to come here today to talk to you a little bit about the economic impact of biking. So in general, I'm going to provide you with a snapshot of Lake County's current bike tourism industry. In a large part, we're going to talk about what other communities are doing. There are some communities who've been bike-friendly for decades. So we look at where they've been, what they're doing, and basically what that leads to as far as the future of Lake County. Excuse me. So in short, we look at the economics of biking in general terms. We're going to look at other biking communities. We're going to look at the state level, then we're down to a regional level, and then more of a local level. We're going to look at Lake County, past and present, what we have done, what we're currently doing, what our future opportunities are, and then we'll summarize everything. So when you look at the economics of biking, there's really 4 pillars to look at. First is the manufacturing. This is manufacturing of any type related to bicycles. So the bicycles themselves, helmets, tires, anything related to manufacturing. We look at sales. So that's anything from your local bike shops, your large retailers like Walmart, Target, and then you're looking also at bike-friendly retail. So shops that aren't specific to bikers but are bike-friendly, something that Shannon touched on earlier. We look at unrealized income, which are some of the health savings associated with biking. Also decreased transportation costs, so a couple income streams that people don't think about when it comes to biking. Lastly, we look at the tourism, which is where we specialize in not only biking events, but also recreational tourism, which is something the Coast to Coast Trail is going to be a big generator for us. So when you look at economic impact, there's 3 things you need to look at to consider. First is direct impact. These are the funds that your tourists spend directly when they come, say, in your area. So it's the hotels, it's the restaurants, it's money directly generated from the event. Then you have the indirect impact. Indirect impact are the supplies that the vendors purchase to get to the tourists. So when the restaurant buys the food to make for the visitors. Lastly is the induced impact. These are the funds that are paid out to the service industry employees and what they go and buy with those funds. So they're not directly related to the tourists, but it's money that's generated. So it's a 3-tier step. We also look at the fiscal impact. That includes the tourism development tax. That's where we come in. For those who don't know, every hotel room has a certain percentage veteran tax, and the county is 4%. So the visitors pay those funds to the hotelier. The hotelier then pays those funds back to the county tourism office, which is our office. We, in turn, then use those funds to help increase tourism. So it's sort of a circular effect. And then also sales tax, which obviously is paid to the state and trickles back down to the county, to the cities. So those are what we're looking at when we're talking about the economic impact of an event or tourism. So first we look at manufacturing. This is basically an idea, this is from 2012, an idea of where the hubs of bike manufacturing are. You can see they really are pretty clustered. You have the Northeast, Northwest, all along the West Coast really, central part of the state, and a couple in Florida, not a whole lot in Florida. Hopefully that's something that will change in the future. Keep this map in mind as you go to the next slide. These are some of the major biking communities that are in the country. Iowa, Vermont, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, Maine, Colorado are some of the ones that have been doing it the longest and have had the most impact. I'm going to go back to the other slide, and you can see that that's where the manufacturing really takes place. It's where the biker-friendly communities are at. You know, as everyone knows, manufacturers want to go where they're going to be accepted, where the government's going to reach out to them and going to support them. So they're going to go where biking is already commonplace. All right, so this was a study that was done in 2012. It gives you a snapshot of where some of the more prolific biking communities are. We're going to touch on a few of these through the presentation, but as you can see, the South is not very well represented. We have North Carolina, we have Tennessee, but as we know, Florida does not have a great biking reputation. Hopefully that changes, but there's really a prime opportunity for Florida to really take over in the South. All right, so first we're looking at the state of Colorado. Again, we're starting a little bit bigger picture. First, we look at the retail manufacturing. Combined in Colorado, retail manufacturing employs over 1,200 people with an estimated annual payroll of over $34 million and generates over $963 million in revenue. When they look at tourism, they basically went out to all the ski resorts in Colorado, which is obviously the biggest tourism driver, and asked the visitors who came out there, how much did biking have an influence on you coming out here? About half the people they interviewed said biking did have an influence. It was about 699,000 people engaged in biking while on their vacation. Of that almost 700,000 people, approximately 40% of them, 276,000, said they chose Colorado because of the biking availability, and if it wasn't there, they would have found a vacation elsewhere. So that was a lot of people. Total revenue of between $141 and $193 million from the biking in Colorado. That led to 103 full-time employees at an annual payroll of around $3.9 million. It also led to 7,500 part-time summer employees, so another large impact. They also calculated bicycle tours, which has become very popular in Colorado. They estimated around $640,000 in revenue generation. One thing that was touched on earlier, in Colorado, you're going to do trail riding. So not all biking is on the paved trails that we have here. There's mountain biking, there's off-road trail riding. So this is sort of a general biking, not just the trails that we're used to. All right, next we look at Iowa. They've been doing it probably the longest, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, this name, the RAGBRAI ride, registers annual Great Bicycle Ride Across Iowa, very long name. It's been around 42 years, so it's one of the longest, largest rides in the world, I believe. It's a 7-day bicycle ride across the state of Iowa. It's over 400 miles long. They did a study in 2008 and found that all the participants there spent approximately $17 million during the course of the ride. They had over 800 participants throughout the ride, so they spent an average of well over $1,900 per person. The total direct, indirect, and induced spending was estimated to be between $24 and $25 million. So quite an impact. That's over an 8-day span, and that's every year. Next we look at Wisconsin. They've been doing this for over 40 years. They had their first Rails to Trails project, which is called the Elroy-Sparta Trail. It's, I believe, a 30-mile trail that goes between the cities of Elroy and Sparta. Since 1967, the state has spent over $240 million on biking infrastructure. It sounds like a lot of money, and it definitely is, but when you look at the return on investment, now they're collecting approximately $1.5 billion in annual revenue from those trails. So the return on investment is amazing for $240 million. This investment has also led to over 13,000 jobs, and biking tourism has generated over $500,000 annually. They receive a little over 15,000 visitors annually and approximately $924 million in revenue from all recreation, tourism, biking. So as you can see, they've had a great impact on biking. Now we're going to go a little more regional. North Carolina Outer Banks. They did a one-time investment of $6.7 million for biking. After they had set everything up and they operated for a few years, they wanted to do a study to see what their return on investment is. One thing that they found was that the riders were largely affluent demographics. Approximately 50% of them had an annual survey of over $100,000, 87% over $50,000, and over 40% of them had advanced education, either a master's degree or doctoral degree. Over the year, they had 680,000 visitors, which created over 1,400 jobs. Another thing they found, and this is great in the tourism world, is that their average day per trip was 8.3. So these people were coming down and staying for a long time. Usually when you have a sports event, you're staying for 3 to 4 days, not very long, but on a more recreational trip, you have over a week's stay. Each day, each person was spending approximately $175, and it led to an estimated annual income of $60 million. So for that one-time $6 million investment, they're annually getting $60 million in return for it. We're going to go back to Colorado. We're going to look at the city of Boulder itself. In 2011, they did a study. They found that their biking industry led to $52 million in revenue and approximately 330 jobs. As you can see, retail, rental, and repair, which is the green area up to the upper right, had the biggest impact of over $24 million and 214 jobs created. Education, advocacy, and outreach, which are donations and grants, it's almost $8 million, 48 jobs. Manufacturing sales, over $10 million, 13 jobs. And lastly was just the other category, which was almost $10 million and 55 jobs. So in Boulder alone, quite an impact. All right, so now we're going to go to Lake County more specifically. A quick look at the past for Lake County. In April 2007, there was a grand opening of the South Lake Trail. Obviously, that's been talked about a lot already today, but it did connect the Lake Minneola Seating Trail to the West Orange Trail. Gave us over 30 miles of paved trails between Lake and Orange County. The South Lake Trail was really created with the intent of giving residents a better and healthier quality of life, but it was also there with the intent of drawing tourism to the area. If you look at Lake County now, after a few years of having the South Lake Trail, we've always been known as a triathlon destination for over 30 years now, but it's really become known as a destination for wellness and health living. That's been led in large part by the South Lake Hospital, City of Claremont, South Lake Chamber of Commerce. As Shannon touched on, South Lake was recently awarded the Biker Friendly Bronze designation, which is great for the area. And Claremont in general has become a premier destination for endurance sports of all types. So not just cycling, but triathlon, running, swimming. It's really become known as a great place for all these activities. Here's just a brief list of events that are hosted in South Lake County that involve bicycle of some sort. A lot of these have been hosted for a long time by Brett Summer and Summer Sports, who will talk to you a little bit, who will go into a little more detail. Horrible 100 is another great event that we've hosted for a long time. Iron Girl has been here for the past couple of years. We bring in a few hundred people every year for the Sprint Triathlon Series. AAA Tri Camp with John Hovius, and then Bike Florida Orange Blossom Express, which was here a couple of years ago. And that's just a few snapshots of events that we've hosted over the past few decades. So some of our competitive advantage in Lake County, primarily location. I mean, when you look at some of the big biking destinations, Vermont, Wisconsin, you can only bike a few months out of the year. So if you're in the winter and you want to go for a bike ride, where do you go? Well, you come down to Florida. We're a premier destination, 30 minutes from the airport, 30 minutes from Orlando, 30 minutes from theme parks, an hour from any beach. It's a perfect location to go. You can bike year round. You got to watch out for the summers and the weather, but touch for that. It's a great location. Obviously, the entire trail, beautiful lakes and scenery. You're not going to get a prettier view as you're rolling around. Another asset that you're not going to get anywhere else in the state of Florida really are rolling hills. If you want to go out for a leisurely ride in the hills, you can do that, or you can challenge yourself in Sugarloaf Mountain. It's an asset that you're not going to find anywhere else in Florida. And again, the Coast to Coast Trail, it was mentioned our location on the trail being right in the middle. That's going to be an invaluable asset for us when that's done. We can't wait for that to be over and see how we can really utilize the trail and help bring more tourists to the area. All right, so we're going to talk about the basic principles of bikeonomics. It brings money to the local economy. These are really basic concepts, but people who ride bikes buy bikes, and we've seen that by the growth of bike retail shops, with the Cycling Hub, Epic Cycles, Multisport. Shops are opening up to cater to the triathletes and bikers who come to the area. People who buy bikes will buy other goods too. So if you're going to bike, there's going to be other things you're going to need for your trip. So they're going to spend money in the area. People who take bike vacations are just like any other tourists. They have to spend money while they're here, whether it's on hotels, food, extra clothing, what have you. People are going to spend money while they're here. As we touched on earlier, bicyclists are a more affluent group than others, so they're going to spend more money. Let's talk about saving money through biking. People who are able to use bike riding as a primary form of transportation save a lot of money on gas, transportation, car upkeep. Healthier people also lead to lower insurance costs, fewer hospital bills for both the residents and the employers, which, going to my next point, riders who save money on those two areas are able to reinvest the money into the retail and the local economy. So having your company being biker-friendly will encourage these bicyclists to come and spend their extra funds at your retail location. So that's basically it. Just to sort of summarize a little bit, as we saw through those communities, communities that have embraced biking have prospered. The numbers are there. You can see over $1 billion annually in revenue from relatively minor investments. South Lake County has a long history of biking, but has not taken full advantage of that. I think working with TJ and the NPO, that's our opportunity to really take advantage of the trail system that we have. South Lake County has competitive advantage that lends it to be a strong biking destination. Again, it's just taking advantage of those competitive advantages and putting them to use. A healthier community is a happier community, and people want to live in healthy communities. That's just, I know plenty of people who lived in Orlando and are now moving out to South Lake County because they want that lifestyle, they want to be healthy, they want to be outdoors, and it's something you just can't really do in Orlando for the most part. With Coast to Coast and the Crosshairs, we really need to jump on the opportunity to make sure, I believe that's what the summit's going to do, get the public knowledgeable and get them excited about what's coming and get us prepared for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And with that, I'm done and I can take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I've been on a mission before, but we're not taking breaks. So if you need to take a personal break, feel free, but we're not stopping. And again, coffee and pastries are still available. I wanted to mention with the economics that what if Aspen had a reputation for not embracing the skiers? What if Daytona had a reputation of not inviting and welcoming the beach people? Well, actually, they did do that. They actually ran a lot of people off. You get the point. See what happened with Daytona? They got a bad reputation for not being tourist friendly. I think a lot of you that live here will all know that story. So here in South Lake, in Lake County and Sumter County, we certainly don't have a reputation of not embracing what our assets are. If these people are already coming that are training, that are doing triathlons, that are cycling and running, if they're already willing to come here and we've done almost nothing, what if we really put some effort into it to make it as accommodating as possible? And again, back to that cultural shift of how do we capitalize and embrace and have this entire community say, yes, we are the choice of champions. Yes, we are bicycling friendly. We are runner friendly. We want these people here. So, continuing on the focus on the economics of it all, we've got Hunter Richards here with the Balmoral Group, who is going to give us an overview of an economic analysis that was conducted regarding Mount Dora and how that can be applied to everything that we're talking about today with the economic impact. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hunter Richards. I'm here representing the Balmoral Group. Thank you for having me this morning. Our president, Valerie Seidel, as well as our regional manager of economics, Craig Diamond, would have both loved to be here this morning, but they had schedule conflicts. So I'll be here representing them. And this is a really great segue from Adam's presentation, because now you're familiar with some of the basic economic concepts guiding the magnitude of economic growth resulting from trails. So I'll walk you through one of our case studies that we completed a few years ago on a predictive economic assessment for downtown trail, Wekiva, through the city of Mount Dora. So the general overview is that this is a predictive study. The trail had not yet come through, and so we were able to look at this trail in the area and customize prior studies, the numbers that had been taken from those studies, and apply it to this unique area. This work was completed for the Florida Greenway and Trails Foundation. So one of the major studies guiding our numbers and our analysis had been completed for Winter Garden, the Orange County Trails Study, specifically based on surveys conducted between 2010 and 2011. Visitors to the trail were stopped and asked a series of questions regarding their retail spending, their motivations, what kind of distance they had traveled from, how frequently they visited the trail, things like that. And these numbers were fed into an econometric tool known as REMI Policy Insight, which can produce some really neat relationships and multipliers that can be applied and customized to other areas. So just to give you some context from this previous study, it was found that the average spending per trail user was about $20, which doesn't sound like too much until you take into account that the annual trail visitors amounted to about 1.7 million, which adds up to over $32 million per year in spending. And this spending, as you heard before, is concentrated on things such as food and beverage vendors, restaurants, transportation, books and maps, bike maintenance services, things like that. Another study that was guiding our economic impact assessment was the Pinellas Trail Study, which was based on a rail trail 35 miles in length accommodating a wide variety of visitors, with over 1 million visitors per year. And important for our assessment, this was noted to be pretty similar to the West Orange Trail and the proposed Wekiva Trail through Mount Dora. So the main piece that we got from this study was participation rates. There are kind of statistical minutia guiding what is the best way to predict how many people in an area will use a trail. And it's based on the availability of substitute trails and the proximity between their residents and the trail. So this made sure to give us a great baseline for that. These two studies, the Winter Garden Trail and around Dunedin, Florida, based on Pinellas Trail, in both cases, the business occupancy rates of the downtown area improved quite dramatically. In one case, the downtown area had been blighted, and in another case, the occupancy was as low as 35%. And in both areas, after the implementation of these trail extensions, the business occupancy went up to nearly 100%. So we can see there's a real tangible economic impact here. Another study worth mentioning is an out-of-state study in Ohio. In 2008, it was found that prices actually for properties around the trail had increased following an extension of the trail by about $7 per foot in increased proximity to the trail. And that really adds up to much higher property prices, which can lead to increased ad valorem tax revenue for the community. In terms of other studies we've completed in the past, we've been able to use GIS to map out just where, in a precise manner, these increased property values are occurring. And you can see from this pretty cool graphic that with the properties that are the closest to the trail, that property value added can be anywhere up to around $12,000, which is getting into some pretty significant territory. And as you've heard before today, I want to just focus on two main topics here to take note of, and this is important for the statistical analysis, that the length of stay is very important for how much spending occurs and therefore how much economic impact occurs. It's been noted that day trippers are known to spend about 4 times as much as those who live locally and only visit the trail for an hour or two. And then beyond that, people who spend the night can spend twice as much as the day trippers. And then getting into that further, the length of the trail is actually important, also as you heard earlier this morning, because the longer the trail is, the farther away people are going to travel, and they're going to spend more time, and you're going to get a much better impact per visitor. Now, our general methodology for this study for the Wekiva Trail in downtown Mount Dora consisted of 3 main steps. There was trip demand estimation, which is based on regional participation, regional population, and then participation, and also beyond that, the frequency per visitor, and that's gleaned from prior survey studies that have been customized to this area. From that, we can estimate the demand of retail spending from those visitors, stratified by distance traveled and other unique visitor attributes, and with all that information, we can tie it together into a quantifiable economic impact. The technical tools primarily consisted of the econometric model I mentioned earlier, as well as GIS analysis, which allowed us to get a really precise hold on exactly what kinds of spending habits would translate into what magnitudes of economic impact, and it allowed us to map out where those additional tax revenues were coming in the form of those increased property values. And the data that we used with these tools came from the Pinellas and the Orange County Trail studies I mentioned earlier, in combination with existing national and state trail reports. And from this, you can see actually we were able to stratify by the distance traveled and how many visitors and user trips were resulting. As you can see here, it's peaking between around 16 to 20 miles away and 21 to 25. The further out you can kind of shift that peak, meaning the more people travel from farther away, of course, is going to be really good for your economic impact. And here's just a snapshot of the numbers resulting from our predictive economic assessment. We were able to estimate that in the future, if this trail were implemented, you'd get about 57,000 annual visitors, nearly 450,000 total annual trips, an average trip distance of 22 miles, and average spending of $21 per visitor. Here's a graphical depiction of the varying distances traveled by the retail spending. Again, the peak is around the 16 to 20 or 21 to 25 range, peaking at around $2.7 million per year. And the total trail user spending was calculated from these very specific stratifications that were allowed by this previous survey work that had been done. You can see the majority actually is spent at restaurants, but there's also some considerable spending at food and beverage, vendors, and then rental services and guide maps and things like that, coming out to a total of about $9.6 million per year. And here's some numbers that I'm going to throw at you. Overall, we found that the total economic benefits would be about $8 million in additional goods and services produced in the area, primarily as a result of that trail. And then $2.5 million about total individual income resulting. That's income going directly into the pockets of individuals employed by these businesses that are impacted. About $5 million in food and beverage and restaurant spending, over $1 million in retail goods and services, and about 114 total new jobs created, and that's based on multipliers coming out of that econometric model. Finally, the fiscal benefits are resulting primarily from the property value increases. About $5.6 million in increased property values could lead to $28,000 annual additional ad valorem taxes to the city of Mount Dora, $26,500 to Lake County government, $42,000 to the school system, and about $780,000 more annual sales tax revenues generated. It's really great to be able to look at these numbers, but it's also really nice to back up and just look at what we can do with this analysis. We can produce things that are based on precedent, that are based on peer-reviewed studies. These are reliable estimates, and the great thing about that is that when we compare this to expected budgets of these trails extensions, we can produce a really compelling argument for the economic impacts that provide a worthwhile return on investment for these trails. And with that, that's my quick overview of the tools that we use on the study, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions if you have any for me. If you think of any, you can email me at the email address there, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We'd like to tie the public investment to the return, and just generally speaking, in planning circles, transit, for example, for every dollar invested, there's a $5 return on that investment of simply having transit in place. And by the way, communities that have more options for people, whether it's a bus, a train, a greenway, trails, sidewalks, and I don't mean a 4-foot, 5-foot sidewalk, I mean an inviting place for humans to walk. The more options, the higher the education, the higher the income. When it comes to transit, $5 return on every dollar. When it comes to roads, $7 return on every dollar invested. When it comes to trails, $9 return for every dollar invested. And that's nationally speaking, taking all those numbers and moving them together. So when you look at the numbers that he presented a minute ago about the return on investment, just imagine like we're doing now in the state of Florida. $18 million was put into the 5-year program this year for the Coast to Coast Connector. We are promised another 15 this next year. So that's for the whole 9-county Central Florida Coast to Coast Connector, $15 million. But yet you saw what the return is going to be once this thing's complete. It's massive. So there's no question that we're on the right track with taking public dollars and investing them in a way that creates economic opportunity. So we've covered the economics. Now let's get back to that cultural shift that we were talking about. So we've got Katie McGruder, who is going to help us learn a lot more about Bike Walk Central Florida and Best Foot Forward for pedestrian safety.
Yes, thank you so much. So I have a not so fun story to share to begin with you. I'm a little bit shaken up right now because I just got a call from my boyfriend who told me I just got in a bad accident. And the first thing that came to mind, are you okay? First question that came out of my mouth. Second question was it a pedestrian or a cyclist? Which is a really sad reality that we have to deal with here. And I'm thankful to say that it was not, and he's okay. But just a very sad thing to think about. That's the first place that my head goes when I hear crash. And maybe that's the field I chose. But so I'm Katie McGruder. I'm with Bike Walk Central Florida, and we are a nonprofit that was started in 2010. And we are advocating to normalize biking and walking. And what I mean by that is, I grew up here. When I see somebody walking on the side of the road, what I think is, where's their car? Oh no, they can't afford one, or they couldn't find a different form of transportation. And I think a lot of people here feel that way, and the same goes for cycling. So we should expect to see cyclists on the road around here, not be afraid of them or not know how to handle it. So this is something that we're working towards as Bike Walk Central Florida. And we have our hand in about 3 different programs. The first being advocating for complete streets. The second being a coordination with the Florida Greenways and Trails to get communication out about the Coast to Coast Connector. And that's through the C2C Connector newsletter. And there is a sign-up sheet up here on the table if you have not already signed up. And that goes out about every 3-ish months. Gives you an update about any gaps that are being closed, as well as what you'll find along the trail. from beaches to rocket launches to the urban and rural environments that you'll encounter along the trail. So it's a great way to stay informed. And then the third way, our program that you talked about briefly, is Best Foot Forward for pedestrian safety. And this is where I spent most of my time. And that it was a program formed in 2012 in response to the Dangerous by Design report that came out that highlighted Orlando as the most dangerous place in the whole country for pedestrians. So Orange County and City of Orlando decided to do something about it, and they formed this coalition. And it brings together all of the different silos that touch ped safety in some way. That includes health, that includes long-range transportation planning, that includes engineers from local government, as well as links and transit. And we all sit down together once a month and we talk about what everyone in each silo is doing to improve ped safety so that we're combating it as one force and we're moving the needle. So here's a picture. So one of the things that I heard Shannon bring up is children, and I haven't heard a lot of talk about children here at this conference. And so one of the ways that in the true indicator of a bike-friendly community is, can kids navigate the street network? Can they ride their bikes around and feel safe? Can I as a parent let my kid out and not worry about their safety as they're trying to have fun or get to the neighbor's house or get to school? So just to show you some of the conditions that we have here in Florida, this is a pretty typical road. How many of you guys have kids? How many of you guys would let your kid ride on this road? Very few. Okay, that's pretty much what I expected. So we need to start planning for letting our kids ride around on these roads, and we can do better than this. Here's some more examples. Just not conducive for children. So to give some insight, about 80% of Americans who are 44 or younger have at least one kid, and about 23% of our population is under the age of 18. So that means there's 228 million potential recreational cyclists that we need to reach. So looking at some of the projects and things that have been done around the country, you can look at Brooklyn in New York and Seattle and Washington, where you see, yes, this is a major right-of-way project, but you can do things like this at lower cost. You can pull out some green paint and start doing some tactical urbanism projects that start bringing awareness of how you can start transforming roads to provide for cyclists of all ages. And so just to give you guys how much this would increase safety, protected bike lanes reduce the risk of injury by about 90%, according to the American Journal of Public Health. So these are recommended for the higher speed roads above 35 miles per hour. You can also take a look at Austin, Texas. Another word for protected bike lane is a cycle track. And not only does it increase safety, but it actually boosts ridership. So in a study done by the Portland State University, they looked at 5 different cycle tracks around the nation and studied them for a year. And at the end of 1 year, they noted that ridership increased from 21 to 171% on these different trails. So looking at conventional bike lanes, they work in some areas, sometimes they don't. They have a lot of inherent hazards, just 2 of them are pictured on the board. Again, I ask you people with children, would you send your child to go deal with the right turning driver who has no idea what to do or expect you, or the person getting out of their car who's going to slam them in the face when they're trying to pass the car? So we look to who's doing the best practices here. And I actually have my background in urban planning, and we studied Portland, Oregon. And yes, we're not going to be Portland, Oregon tomorrow, but again, there are ways that we can start instilling this and bring awareness to our communities. So here you can see these are cycle tracks, and the definition is really that there's a barrier between the motorists and the cyclists. And you can do this in a number of different ways. You can do this by just putting up orange cones for a day. You can do this by actually installing a raised median. You can make single lane cycle tracks. You can make double lane cycle tracks. And then you can use things like planters and even on-street parking when it's designed in a way that allows for a door opening space that is different from the place where the bicyclist rides. So what can you guys do leading here short term? Advocacy. Coming up in May is Bike to School Day. I don't know if you guys participate in this, but you should. Get together some parents and friends and organize a miniature event. Get your neighborhood to do this. The goal is to get kids on the street biking and get them there safely. Another program that we have in Winter Park is called the Walk and Roll program, where a couple of very determined mothers put together a program that once a month on a Wednesday, they get all of the community, the people who live within 2 miles to walk or bike to school. And then they have volunteers come out and count how many kids are walking and biking. And then the students get incentives. So they get miniature prizes, or they get signed up for classes to encourage them to continue walking and biking to school. And you guys are really great at the sports cycling. You have so many events going on. I just saw a list of 9 different races and events that you guys advertise around here, but it's really geared towards the athlete. So other events that you guys can host, and I know Shannon mentioned a few of them, are ciclovias, where you shut down part of the street and you invite families out to use your current infrastructure. It really doesn't cost that much money. Open street initiatives are very similar. Bike rodeos and critical mass, little play on critical mass. I like that one a lot. So these are ways that you guys can start amping up this awareness and bringing the kids out to the street. And finally, we had the League of American Bicyclists recently come to Winter Park, as you guys did as well. And one of the main action items that came out of that was that Orlando and Orange County should create a regional map that maps out family-friendly routes. So where can the residents who are already here go and utilize these trails with their kids? And so what I say to you guys is, in the short term, May 6th, Bike to School Day, I want to see all you out there with your kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Very good. And just this past week, there was a meeting with the South Lake Chamber and with the Sports and Tourism Subcommittee, and we're taking a serious look as a group at Bike Walk Central Florida and possibly expanding those activities into Lake County. So very exciting. And the safety issue is big. I mean, this is what I'm saying about a cultural shift. You all are the ambassadors of that cultural shift. What you are hearing today, you have to go forth and promulgate, get into the minds of others in our community. I want to invite Mike Wilson up. He's a colleague of ours, a friend to the east with the MPO for Metroplan Orlando. And he's going to talk about Cycling Savvy, a very interesting program that helps get people up to speed, right?
Thanks, DJ. So my name is Mike Wilson. I work for Metroplan Orlando. I wear another hat, however, which is as board chairman for the new American Bicycling Education Association. And we're the ones who house the Cycling Savvy program, which was actually developed here in Florida, in Orlando, under the Florida Bicycle Association, that has now become a national program and organization. So our vision as an organization is that drivers of human-powered vehicles would be respected in normal part of traffic in our communities. And this is really at the core of what we're talking about with this social change. Sorry, getting used to the interface here. All right. The challenge that we have with education for cyclists is not that we have merely a lack of knowledge in many cases, but there's really more of like a knowledge inversion. We have many people doing the exact opposite, fully under the belief that they're doing the right things. We have people using high-risk behaviors in the belief that they're safe and avoiding risk-reducing behaviors in the belief that those behaviors are rude. So it makes for a really serious challenge when we're trying to educate people. And so we had to really go back to core principles that we talk about. How do we reach people and be effective in getting them to change not only their behaviors but their beliefs? this is the kind of environment that we see so often, an epidemic really of unsuccessful behavior of cyclists behaving more often like pedestrians or just in total random maneuvers. And it's because they don't believe that they are legitimate users of the system. And again, that's a core belief problem. Where we're at in our culture is that what's really important is the kind of stories that we tell one another. And most of the stories that bicyclists are telling are of close calls, of crashes, of harassment. And the underlying theme there is that motorists are careless and mean. And the story on the motorist side is that, bicyclists are surprising, we have a lot of close calls, and we see cyclists not obeying the law. And so they're appearing out of nowhere, and they don't follow the rules. Whether these are true or not is kind of side point. These are the stories that are so dominant. And what this has created for us, the combination of behavior and stories is a self-reinforcing cycle of conflict and fear. We start off with this core myth that bicycling on the road is dangerous. You have to stay out of the way or you're going to get smushed. And this inspires some coping behaviors that are very, very common out there, but that are very unsuccessful, and that actually produce the exact types of close calls and frustrations that feed back into that danger myth that so many people hold. So what we've tried to do through our educational process is break this cycle and start from the very beginning and to ask the question, what is a street? Well, a street is for people. It's not just for vehicles. And when we show people that they can act in ways that show that they belong there, and when those behaviors produce success in reducing conflict and bad stories, that confirms that core belief that streets are for people. And you get a positive cycle. And where we think we can make the most leverage on this, at least as an organization, American Bicycle Education Association, is in the realm, sorry about that. Is in the realm of bicycle driver education. Because if you're going to have cultural respect for bicyclists, the bicyclists have to be predictable and respectable. So we do this by not only educating cyclists, but by empowering them in a process where 5 strategies, where we reframe the story, we reframe the whole way of looking at their role in traffic. We don't just tell them how things work. We actually ask them with some guided discussion on some key issues pertaining to how things function out there on the roads. And we ensure that they get a very steady progression, that we don't throw people into the deep end of the pool. We make sure that they get every point of the process. And then ultimately, we take them out on the roads and we have them put it all together in a positive social environment that helps them to see how their life can proceed with these new skills. And what's really important about that is that provides social reinforcement. And not only do you get that through the course itself, but we try to engage then our students at the local level to participate in other cycling events with us so they really become part of a community. So the way we reframe the stories is that and this is the common assumption, is that bicyclists are at risk because they're vulnerable and slow. And what that means to the average person is that, well, I'm helpless to change my circumstance. When the fact is, when we look at crash data, bicyclists are at risk when they are inconspicuous and unpredictable. And that's something that you can change as an individual. And that's what we are essentially teaching them, is how to be conspicuous and predictable. So when I talked about engagement, we get our students to tell us some of the really important factors in how to be safe and why we can be safe. We try to make our course as much as possible an interaction and a discussion, so that it's really information ownership that we are getting from our students, and that's really what creates the belief change. So, for instance, when we talk about, well, what if bicyclists, what if being slow and exposed is actually an advantage? This is like one of the core questions to it, and it turns around that whole frame. I talked about the progression that we use through our course, making sure that they have all the foundational information and skills, because if you don't have those core, and it's surprising that sometimes we can meet people who've been on a bike for many years who are lacking some essential knowledge and skills. And so that means we don't take things for granted. And then we build an incremental level so that people are successful. But we challenge them as well. So I'm going to show you a story of one of our students. This was actually from a student in Dallas, by the way. I think I mentioned we are in 17 states now with the Cycling Savvy program. So this is a woman, Wei, who had just bought this bike. She hadn't been biking much since a child, just out of college. And so we put her through the classroom, through the essential skills in the parking lot to make sure she was competent in all of her bike handling essential skills. Then we bring her out on the road, and we start building up the types of experiences that she's going to have, making sure that each one of them is successful. And again, this is somebody who had barely been on a bike and certainly not spending any time cycling in traffic. But bit by bit, she's getting more comfortable learning how to interact successfully with the other road users around her. And then we put it all together, and we really push people into some areas that they would not normally go. We put our cyclists in many cases through intersections that many trained cyclists would avoid, but with strategies that are very clear and very logical. And so here's Wei coming through an interchange that really horrifies most cyclists in the Dallas area, and she's doing exactly what she was taught and having absolutely zero problems, and you can see her negotiating her way through here, and a little hard to see probably with the screen in the photograph, but she has a huge grin on her face after having just accomplished this. And so now she's got a story of, all right, maybe I'm not going to go through that interchange if I don't have to, but if I have to, I can. And she's got a tribe of friends now who've all gone through that same thing, and has people that she knows will back her up. So these are the stories that she's going to be telling to her friends, and really to herself as well. That I'm in control, I can go wherever I want, and that cycling is a safe and enjoyable experience. And what we find is that when we train cyclists to be proactive about their needs, for the most part, motorists want to cooperate. Motorists don't want to be mean. They just need to know what's expected of them. And when you do that, they're courteous for the most part. And then you only have to deal with that occasional rare jerk, who's just assuming they know better. And that makes all the difference. And what we're teaching is not just cycling, really. If you think about it, and these are really life skills. The idea of situational awareness, looking ahead, predicting problems before they get there, figuring out how to deal with problems rather than blindly following simple rules, learning how to communicate with the people around you, learning how to cooperate with the people around you, and being self-reliant. These are all kind of values that I think everybody can relate to and support, and we're doing them through cycling. So what we're seeing through this is we're changing the behavior of our cyclists. We're changing the motorist expectations in our community by getting more cyclists out there behaving in a predictable manner. We're changing the beliefs of the cyclists and the motorists around them. And of course, we're creating a healthier and livable community. As I mentioned before, we are in 17 states and growing. We've got basic courses, the basic 9 to 10 hour cycling setting course, which is 3 hours in the classroom, 3 hours in the parking lot, and 3 to 4 hours on the road. We also have a group riding curriculum, and we've been working with a number of cycling clubs to get that out. That is focused not so much on those like baseline skills and such that many groups focus on, but how do you manage a group within a traffic environment in a way that's going to be not only safe but equitable for everyone involved. We have an instructor training program, and we often do at least one instructor training here in the Orlando area. So if you want to have any cycling savvy instructors for the Lake County area, it's very easy to make that happen. And we've really focused on trying to make sure we have as good a support as we can for our instructors, because one of the shortcomings often for cycling education is that instructors don't get enough support to help them to put on courses, because it's a tough slog sometimes to how you market it, get the locations, get all the curriculum materials, putting it all together can be really daunting. As much as we can, we try to make that happen for people. So that concludes my presentation on the program. We have some handouts over here on the table, and if anyone has any questions either now or later, I'd be happy to take them.
Good. Thank you, Mike. I know there was a question earlier about the law and how that works, so rather than me even try to address anything like that, I'll bring in a professional up that knows what she's talking about. We've got Becky Alfonso here. She's the Executive Director of the Florida Bicycle Association. She's going to cover several issues, including law enforcement.
Good morning. I actually did not bring a presentation, but I brought the script for my 2-hour video. My name is Becky Alfonso. I'm the Executive Director of the Florida Bicycle Association. I was asked to say a few words with regards to cycling and law enforcement. I can actually narrow it down to one. Yes. Yes, cycling and law enforcement, they need to be together. Generally speaking, public roads make up the greatest mass of public space. Generally speaking, law enforcement's role is to protect and serve the public. Generally speaking, a cyclist as a public road user must obey the laws and hopefully respect law enforcement. They're not rose-colored. Just checking. Maybe it's just my imagination. But imagine if cyclists, motorists, pedestrians, all public road users obeyed traffic laws and respected each other and law enforcement. We can do it. We are the variable to that equation, and we've got to find a way to make that work. How many here, show of hands, drive a motor vehicle? Okay, and how many drive a bicycle? Okay, ride the bus or take the train? I'm from Tampa. How often do you smile during those activities? Do you smile during those activities? Let's practice smiling right now. Give it a try. Come on, everybody smile. Does it take you to a happy place? Could the happy place be a public road? Even if law enforcement pulled you over? I've had this job at the association for just over 5 months. Suffice to say, I've heard some interesting stories regarding cycling and law enforcement. I'm going to share a few true stories. My first story, about 2 months into the job, I received a phone call from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. They had been receiving numerous complaints from residents over a group of cyclists that are going out on the weekends, running stop signs, riding more than 2 abreast, just not behaving in the manner in which they should. The sheriff did not call me to give me a warning about, your people are going to get ticketed. He actually asked me to sit in on a task force meeting with the group that was going to go out there and not target cyclists, but to try to educate everybody in that region with regards to obeying the laws. Okay, that's law enforcement reaching out to the cycling community. My second story, I was at a bicycle club meeting, and I won't mention the club's name, and the conversation turns towards law enforcement's targeting us. They're always out to tell us what we're doing wrong. It never seems to go the other way. And it's not just one story, one comment. It becomes the topic of that club meeting for 20 minutes. At some point, I asked, had anybody called law enforcement maybe to have a sit down? And the answer is no. They seem rather content to feel victimized by law enforcement. Well, I'll move on to my third story. And I'll back it up with a sidebar story. When I took this job, I decided that any bicycle club that joined the association as a club, I would join their club. And I am now a member of 19 bicycle clubs in the state of Florida, which is great, because I get all these wonderful e-newsletters about what's going on in all these areas. But what's also great is that I'm seeing the potential to network all of these clubs and unify the concerns of cyclists in the state of Florida. And one such example came from the Gainesville Cycling Club, who asked, how do you develop a relationship with law enforcement? Well, I know my personal relationship in the city of Oldsmar, but I thought I would take that out to the 19 clubs I'm a member of. I got a response from the Peace River Riders Bicycle Club in Punta Gorda, who explained their 6-year process. But it started with a phone call. A phone call to law enforcement to ask them for something, law enforcement having a meeting and saying yes. Now the ask is kind of comical. The bike club was having an event, and they wanted to kind of put it back to the cyclists that they really were breaking the law, that they really were speeding on this one road. So the club president asked the police department to set up a radar gun speed trap. Not necessarily to ticket the cyclists, but just to show them that they were breaking the law. And they did that. They didn't ticket them, they just educated them. The club then decided, let's give these proceeds to a law enforcement program called Do the Right Thing for kids. This has been going on for 6 years. But it's not just this one event. Law enforcement, the Punta Gorda Police Department, and the Peace River Bicycle Club have done numerous activities together. At one point, the officer asked, can we get your cyclists to, for lack of a better term, be guinea pigs, and get them out on the road so that we can actually do a 3-foot passing law, not necessarily another targeting thing, but another education component with the motorists. And they complied. And then the bike club asked them, can you put that law on the back of your cars as billboards to further educate the residents? And they did that. I recently received an email from the chief of police, and it's amazing what more that police department will do. They will host bicycle rodeos. They will conduct safety classes. They will talk about it on a local radio station. And my favorite is this paragraph. Most importantly, this is coming from the chief of police of Punta Gorda, we philosophically believe in and enthusiastically support the share the road concept, the right of all bicyclists to utilize public traffic ways, and we have the goal of making Punta Gorda the bicycle mecca of Florida. So when you ask me about law enforcement and cycling, yes. We need to be working together, establishing those contacts, making those communications work. It's a phone call. It's an email. It's a sit down. It's looking at each other in the eye. And more importantly, smile. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky. We now have covered what's happening. We've covered economics. We've covered culture. Now we want to get into what's actually happening here locally with our partners, people that are really part of the community of cycling. So I want to bring up first Scott Hartle, who is Executive Director of Florida Free Wheelers Inc. He's going to be our first, and we'll do this very quick pace. We'll hear from 4 of our local partners. So Scott?
Okay, can we change the font so I can read it? Okay, I'm the executive director of the oldest bicycle club in the Central Florida area. We were started in 1973, and we're primarily just people who get together and ride bicycles. That's our primary focus. The club was incorporated in 1975 with a formal board of directors and officers, and we currently have 13 volunteers that compose our board, as well as an executive director. We have events directors, and we have a webmaster, but primarily we're volunteers. Our club right now has over 600 members. Some of them ride off-road, some of them ride trails, some of them race in various disciplines, but the primary interest of most of our current club members are road cycling and eating before, during, and after the road cycling. So it's kind of the pain and the pleasure. Some of our members were interested in sharing some things that they found outside the Orlando area, the hills of South Lake, with other club members and non-club members. And that idea was where the Horrible 100 was started in 1980. And the original 100-mile course was intended to use all of the worst paved hills best paved hills, I'm sorry, did I say worst? In South Lake County to produce the pain part. Over the years, the Horrible 100 has moved. It originally started in 1980. And it was first stage where the Winn-Dixie, I don't know how familiar everybody is with where the Winn-Dixie Plaza is. We had a table set up with a card table, and all 7 riders came and took off that day. From there, actually, the person did registration, folded the card table up to the back of their truck, and they rode as well. We moved down to JC Beach, which is now Waterfront Park, but it's always been the 3rd Sunday of November. And people, once it got word out, have started to come from all over the state to visit our little event. So this is the first year in 1980. We had 7 riders. I tried to come up with a picture of that. I'm not sure that that's the historically accurate one. But we've grown over the years. We had t-shirts. We had t-shirts one year. That 1985 was the first year that I found out about it. I don't recall a whole lot from that ride, except that I do remember the pain part, and I remember getting lost somewhere down in Bay Lake for about half an hour. There was not a soul around. Don't make a wrong turn. Anyway, we've grown throughout the years, the last 35 years. We have a number of different amenities that we've added to the event as it became more popular. And the lower picture is just before the start of the 2012 Horrible 100, and that was the last year that we had a mass start. And it took about 18 minutes for that area to clear once we started with solid bikes. I was told there was going to be some economic numbers thrown around here. All I can say is that we do know our participants' addresses. Last year we had about 600 of them that had home zip codes over 120 miles away, and we had about 1,000 people come in and check in on Saturday. We assume that just about all of them are staying 2 nights, and the best indicator probably of the economic impact are that it's almost impossible to find a table at a restaurant that's serving pasta the night before our event. Okay, Mike promised me my video play here, maybe. Let's see if this happens. Come on, video. Okay, one more try. This is just a real quick look at what people were doing at this year's, the beginning of this year's event. Right. Can you shoot that link? Play that link. Yeah. Okay, again, I'm not really good at filling time, obviously, like TJ is. The main point, we're a club, we're here, and we're here mainly because of the hills and the terrain in the area, and many of the things I've heard about leveraging that capability is excellent, and we're a living proof of an event that's grown from 7 to over 2,000 and does have the economic impact that we're talking about. We're just an example of that. You're not going to get to see my video. It's actually on YouTube. If you go to Google 2014 Horrible 100, there's hundreds of them there. This one is taken with a drone. I think by the time Fred Summer gets up, he's got another one of his races, and you'll get a perspective with the drone from there. But it's really neat to watch. There you go. That's a different. It's still loading. TJ. I tried.
Appreciate it, Scott. Technology can sometimes be such a double-edged sword. So we can skip the ad in 2 seconds. There we go. It's all about heads on beds. So right there is evidence. Those people came, they saw Lake County, they spent their money. And they had a good time doing it. So, you've heard from Florida Free Willers. Thank you, Scott Hartle. Appreciate that. Some of you may be aware that there is this little facility here in South Lake called the National Training Center. And it's a big deal. In partnership with South Lake Hospital. We have Kim Couch here, who's going to tell you a little bit about the NTC and what's happening from her perspective. We'll do this one. All right, Kim's going to talk in just a moment.
I'll introduce myself. Well, we go. Thank you. So Kim Couch, South Lake Hospital, as he said, National Training Center and Live Well Fitness Center. Hopefully hopefully some of you are familiar with the facility. South High School moved to its campus in 2000. We opened the National Training Center in 2001. There were triathletes here before that all happened, but when we opened, we were fortunate enough to be able to have a wonderful pool that triathletes like, and of course with the rolling hills and everything like that, we've become, and Fred's events and other triathlon opportunities here have become a great place for business for triathletes, and that continues to grow. Just a little bit of clarity, as South Lake Hospital, our mission is to improve the health and wellness of the residents of the area we serve. But with that, we also have a large economic impact. So with the National Training Center, that brings in a lot of outside athletes and visitors, and we've really grown that sports tourism and economic development as well. So we do focus on both. We did rebrand the fitness center itself to the Live Well Fitness Center a few years ago. Might have caused some confusion, but we're still focusing on both the National Training Center and Live Well, making sure our residents know that we're not only here for athletes, we're here for our community as well, which I think this is really brings it together with the trails and everything else and making the roads safe. It's not only for these athletes coming in, but more importantly, or just as importantly, for the residents here. So South Lake Hospital definitely has an eye on both of those and wants to make sure that we can provide the best services for visitors and for residents. So we look at triathlon. Triathletes are what we see a lot of with the cycling world. Obviously, they don't come to our facility for the roads, but what we have seen is the influx of triathletes with events. Just to give you a little overview, when we talk about economics, who are triathletes? Their average age is 38, pretty well split, male and female, and a very affluent group, as we've mentioned before, I believe, with both cyclists and triathletes. So when these people are coming here, they're coming and staying and spending money and going out to eat. And you know, a lot of the triathletes that we see here in the groups that come in, this is a vacation for them. So they're here to have a great time. They like to do things here locally. So we work really hard with the chamber members to promote other facilities they can go see while they're here. So they do see it as a vacation destination. We want to make sure we're giving them a great experience. So what's happened at the National Training Center, like I mentioned, we opened in 2001, and we're trying to learn the business. We've really now focused in on having people go out and recruit. The teams that come are our best salesmen because they come here, they have a great time, they love the hotels, they love being welcomed here, they love the hills and the trails. So to look at it, we looked at just the past couple years, we had about 44 triathlon camps booked. Our last fiscal year, we go on October to September, so we look at everything in that. So far this year, we've already had 50 triathlon camps booked through the end of March. So with the economy picking back up, and a lot of the efforts that the whole community has made here, we've really seen a growth in the impact of visiting triathlete teams, at least at the National Training Center. So that's exciting for us to see, and you know, we're looking for a record year this year and hopefully continue to grow that. Our camps that do come, and either camps or teams that come to train, have between 5 if it's a small camp or just some friends that have come down, to 30 participants in camps or team training. And they usually stay 3 to 5 days, and usually a couple days before and a couple days after they might be staying somewhere else in Lake County or Central Florida. So again, they're making it a vacation out of it. Although we do have serious camps for training as well. And about 90% of the teams and camps that do come are from out of the state. I just grabbed the list from this month, I think, or the last few months, and put some up there. So you see a lot of Canada, a lot of colleges. Triathlon's really grown in the college ranks we've seen. So we have the start of a lot of teams coming down here from colleges to train. Some tri groups, the Terrier Tri from New York, they've been coming for, I think, well over 10 years. And it's a vacation for them. They bring their trailer down and grow every year and have a great time down here. So that just kind of gives you an idea of who's coming down here to Lake County. And that's also, we've seen a huge influx of professional triathletes moving here. It's great weather almost year round. You know, we have the great roads here. We have the National Training Center. So these are just a list of some of our athletes that in the past 10 plus years have made Claremont either their second home or their first home. So it's very exciting to see. Some of the other facilities that we have that we try and make sure we keep up to grab the triathletes and bring them here. We have a Human Performance Lab that is one of 10 in the nation that's USA Triathlon certified performance center. So that grabs USA Triathlon's attention, and athletes look for that and come here. So we have a great lab there. Recently, our outpatient rehab at Southside Hospital was named the best sports rehab center by in the Southeast by Competitor Magazine. So another neat thing about the hospital is not only do we have the training facilities that the hospital keeps up, but we have the rehab. We have the orthopedic surgeons here in the area. So access to high quality health care, which is very important not only for residents, but for our visiting athletes as well. So we're really trying to make sure that we give the athletes that full experience and support while they're here, and we've seen that been very well accepted by them. Oh, sorry, I duplicated the slide there. So when triathletes do come to stay with us, they come to our facility for either the lab or for swimming is the big thing. They come here. Running, they'll go run on our trails. We're fortunate to have the trailhead right on our campus, so they can come in, swim, do a run, and then of course cycling. So they're here. That's one of the biggest parts that why they come here is for our trails and roads. So we're very excited with all of the expansion that's coming, the coast to coast improvement of our roads. It's only going to help us bring more triathletes and visitors here. And one more thing to note, I think it's kind of when we talked about the whole residents and athletes, you can come to our lobby and sit there for an hour, and probably in any given hour you'll see an Olympian come in to go work out. You'll see a senior from post-surgery come into rehab. You see a little kid going to swim team. You see a camp come in from Canada. So it's really neat to see the whole group come together. It's not just about residents, or it's not just about visiting teams, it's about the whole community with the same goals of health and wellness. So we're excited to be a part of it, and appreciate all of the support of the community, and hope to continue to make South Lake an even better place to be.
Thank you very much, Kim. Next, we're going to bring up Fred Summer Sports, and he's going to give you a little information about Florida Triathletes Inc. And Fred is not doing PowerPoint, so he's going to talk to you.
And you're probably happy to see me because it means there's only one more talk before the presentation. The history of triathlon, we put our very first event on back in 1984, and the reason we put it on was not to put people in heads and beds, or to put them in the restaurants, because I think at that time we only had 3 restaurants in Claremont, and the closest hotels were about 7-8 miles north on US 27 up by the Turnpike entrance. But basically, I put the first event on so my friends would have a place to come race. Grew up in Claremont, was very active in the running boom in the 70s. I was quite large at the time, lost 40 pounds with running, and I got bored with running. And in 1983, I saw an ad in the Sentinel for a triathlon in Orlando, and I'm the type of person that's motivated by a challenge. So I said, shoot, I've been swimming in Lake Mineola since I was a kid. I've been biking forever, running forever, so I decided to do a triathlon. I got hooked. At that time, I had my running buddies that were here as well, and then at the time, there was like 5 or 6 triathlons in the entire state of Florida. So I decided that the town was a perfect place. We had JC Beach, we had roads where you could run around the lake and not even see a car back then. It's changed now. So basically, I put on the first triathlon that same winter. I started Central Florida Triathletes, a triathlete club, and it sort of turned into a business because back then it was a wild, wild west. There was no rules with triathlon. And as the events grew, we started putting on more and more events at different distances, and people started coming to Claremont. And back then, it was a little bit different because when people came to do an event, they would come here for 3 or 4 days, even the sprint race. Now, the typical triathlete will come in the night before, and even with a race like an Ironman distance race where you'd think they'd want to come in a week before, get out on the course, they'll come in the night of the event and even ask, well, can I just come in the morning of and pick up my pack and go out there? So we have to work harder to get them here. And of course, now it's more important than ever that we put people in the hotel rooms because we have to justify us being here, and we also want to, patronize the local businesses and that. When you look back at our history, this past weekend we had 2 events. There are two oldest events, one's 32 years old and the other one's 31. So just this past weekend, we had 63 years of event history right here at Waterfront Park. I was trying to get the exact count, but I guess that we put on about 250 triathlons at Waterfront Park in JC Beach, which is what it was called before. I have no idea how many people we brought to Claremont, but we have brought athletes from all 50 states and 30 countries to come here to Claremont to race. For this season, we have 9 separate triathlon weekends coming up, and we have 5 running event weekends, and then some of our triathlon event weekends also have a run with it. We're estimating that we're going to bring about 10,000 athletes to Claremont to race this year, or South Lake County, because we do a couple events that are right outside of Claremont as well. And with that's going to come another 10 or 20,000 friends and family members to come here and watch. Some of the strengths when you put events on here in South Lake County, of course the venue, you couldn't ask for a better venue for triathlons in Waterfront Park, and for running and cycling. It's a beautiful park, even back in the old days when it was JC Beach, with the pristine lakes. It was definitely a venue that is unmatched in the state. The community embraces the events. And some of our strengths are also the weaknesses when you put on events here and try and bring people in the area as well. But the community will come out and support the business community, and also the city and the government. And of course, the courses, as other people have said, we have beautiful roads, especially in the early days. You could bike, for 30 or 40 miles and only pass a car or two. And it's a little bit different out there now. Some of the weaknesses the challenges that we have, putting on events here and getting more people to come here, of course, is lodging. There's never enough rooms. We have some great partners with Holiday Inn, but we don't have a resort here. If we had a resort on the lake, it would definitely help us. If we had 200 or 300 more rooms within a 10 or 15 minute drive of Waterfront Park, it would definitely help us as well. And the local support is also a challenge, because if you only put on 1 or 2 events a year, it's easy to get the community out, but if you do a dozen events, it's hard to get the same people out. And there's also so many other events going on, it's becoming more and more of a challenge to get the community, to embrace the events. The concerns that we have, of course, government's always a concern. Because you never know when things are going to change. A change in the makeup of a city council or the county commissioners can turn a community from a pro-event community into a community that really doesn't want to have events. You also have governments that can throw hurdles your way. They'll triple the venue fees, stuff like that, which can make it very tough. We're extremely fortunate here that we have a great city of Claremont, Mineola, and also the county is great to work with. But you never know what's going to change. And when you're putting on triathlons, another concern is the water quality. About 12, 15 years ago, when the lakes were growing up, we were actually afraid that we would not have enough water to swim in. There was killer algae coming out of the lakes. And so we actually were looking at other areas to put the events on, because we didn't think we'd have water to swim in. So that's something we always have to think about. And I think one of the biggest things we have to worry about is saturation. As you see, I'm putting on 14 events here in Claremont. There's other events coming in, whether they're bike rides, running races, triathlons. So at any given time, not only the saturation for the participants, but also the community. How many times is the community going to put up with another group of cyclists on the road for an event or training? The opportunities, I think, as Kim had mentioned, camps. There's a great opportunity here. Our event this past weekend, several of the camps that were at the training center were actually using our event as either the kickoff to their camp or the final event that they're doing. I think there's a lot of opportunities for partnerships. One of the challenges that we have is that we have to be focused on the event. We want the athletes to have a great event. And we can't worry about putting them in the restaurants and all that. So we need the partners with like the Chamber of Commerce and Downtown Partnership. And that's the challenge. We had the event this weekend. We opened it up to the Chamber and also our local Downtown Partnership. Come out, have a table, show these athletes where you can eat, all the cool things to do, but they didn't take us up on it. And then also, when you look at the growth of the events, races like running and triathlon, it's similar to the trails. The longer the event, the farther people are going to come to do the event. And when you have more stuff for the athletes to do, like a youth, like having a kid zone, having other events going on, they're more apt to bring additional people with them. So if you just put on a race, you're going to have mom or dad come and do the event. The family's going to stay at home. If they know they're coming to an area where there's stuff to do, whether it's a splash park, a vibrant downtown, now the entire family's coming, and they may spend a night or two because they're making a weekend out of it. But anyway, when we look to the future, I mean, we're definitely excited about the Cross Florida Trail. We hope to actually get involved and coordinate some trips for people. I see that as a super opportunity in the future. So that's it.
Thanks a lot, Brian. I want to bring up a friend of mine, Rob Earn, who is an engineer partner at Booth, Earn, Strawn, and Hyatt in Tavares, and he is also Vice President of the Ocala Mountain Bike Association. So our final local partner, and then we're going to wrap up the summit here in just a few minutes.
Thanks, EJ. My name is Rob Earn. I am the Vice President of the Ocala Mountain Bike Association. I also wear a couple other hats. I'm an engineer here in Lloyd County with Booth, Earn, Strawn, and Hyatt. Also sit on the board of the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation here with Mike Woods. And I'm also fortunate enough to be a bike shop owner in the city of Ocala, Brick City Bicycles. So today I'm here to talk about off-road cycling. Are there any mountain bikers in the room? All right, excellent. Primarily we've been talking about road cycling, trail cycling. Would also love to encourage the use of natural surface trails. So most of the trails that OMA is responsible for are up on the Cross Florida Greenway, south of Ocala. The Greenway stretches about 110 miles from the Gulf over to the Ocklawaha River. The Barge Canal on this project was discussed as early as the 1880s, was finally decommissioned in 1991 officially. That gave us a great opportunity for some recreation opportunities on the Greenway. A little bit of history on our club and on cycling on the Greenway. So as with a lot of places where mountain biking started, folks were just going out and building trails on their own without permission, without talking to the land managers. That was going on in the Greenway from the late 80s, early 90s. As trails started to develop, not just for cyclists, but equestrians and hikers and other folks, using the land that maybe shouldn't have been out there, Office of Greenways and Trails, our partner, came to us and said, we need to form an organization, we need a point of contact. So that's what we became. We were born in 1993. I've been involved since 1994. We are the point of contact for cycling on the entire Greenway at this point. At that point, there were probably 5 miles of unofficial trails. They were unmarked. There were no trailhead facilities, dirt parking areas, really limited signage. Folks just did a little bit of whatever they wanted to do. And really at that point, the club was just there to satisfy the OGT. In the years since, we've come a long way. We've done a lot of growth. We now have about 250 paid members. I wish we could increase that because last year we had over 36,000 cars through the trailhead at Santos. That's one of 7 trailheads that access the mountain bike trails. So that translates to about 100,000 visitors mountain biking on the Greenway. If you want to talk economic benefits, that's what we're talking about, is getting people there. I have been driving from Mount Dora to Bellevue at least twice a week for over 20 years now to ride on a mountain bike. People travel to do what we do. At this point, we've got about 85 miles of single track on the Greenway that we manage. We designed it all, built it all 100% with volunteers. A couple pump tracks, dirt jump lines. Proud to have the largest free ride mountain bike park on public land in the United States. That's starting to change as we're seeing other cities embrace this kind of activity. Every year we have a big fat tire festival. This year we sold it out in under 18 hours, 625 participants, over 60 sponsors and vendors. Every major bike manufacturer was there with a demo trailer. We could do more. We just don't have the room at this point. So we're looking to probably move the venue at some point in the future so we can increase the participation. Over the course of that weekend, I believe the count for vehicles was over 4,000 in 3 days in that one parking lot. So our group has grown. We have a certified National Mountain Bike Patrol organization. We're the eyes and the ears for OGT on the ground. We also have received an IMBA, International Mountain Bike Association, bronze ride center designation. We're one of the first 6 ride centers in the world, one of the first 5 in the United States. And the idea behind that is providing an opportunity for everybody at every level to ride a bike. So we've got beginner through expert level trails, we've got a free ride park, we've got folks that come out on hand cycles and utilize some of our trails. Our club is currently managing trails in 4 locations, Paisley Woods Bike Trail in the National Forest. Mike Stevens out here actually helps us take care of that one. We have a partnership with the City of Mount Dora, and that's a really great example of how you can bring cyclists in a very small piece of property. We've got about 25 acres there. We've developed 4 miles, a piece of single track. I'm seldom out there when I don't see another dozen cyclists on a piece of land that the city already owned that wasn't really being used for anything. We've also been working with the City of Orlando to develop a bike park in downtown. That will hopefully open back up soon, and I think we'll probably be turning it over to the fine folks at Sorbo Orlando before long, since it's kind of out of the way. The trails we have currently stretch about 25 miles from end to end. They're accessed, as I said, by 7 trailheads. And if you drive I-75, you've probably seen the land bridge across I-75. That caters to equestrians, cyclists, and hikers, gives us safe passage across the interstate. As you can see from some of the pictures, we really try to involve everybody. My kids have been on bikes since before they could be on a bike. As you see in the one picture, on a tag-along. I've been riding off-road with them since they're about 2.5 years old. Currently, we've got a group called the Florida Junior Development Squad, meeting every Wednesday up at the Santos Trailhead, getting kids involved in off-road cycling and racing. We've got about 40 kids a week coming at this point, and they're anywhere from about 2 or 3 years of age up to teenage years, and a lot of them are starting to race now, doing really well with it. We try to provide for a way to get on a bicycle, not be near vehicles, not be on pavement, but just be out in nature. And the wildlife that you see on the greenway is quite extensive. We've been very fortunate. We've worked with a great land management agency in the Office of Greenways and Trails. Mickey Thompson is the land manager for the entire cross-border greenway. We've crafted a partnership agreement that works well for us, well for them, outlines who's responsible for what, what's expected of everyone, and it really works well. This past year, we had almost 6,800 hours of volunteer time donated on the greenway, just from our organization. That's valued at $144,000 of volunteer time, based on about $20 an hour, which is the current rate of volunteers in the state of Florida. We try to involve people from all disciplines of riding, both on our board and within our club. We've got folks that free ride BMX, road cycle, cyclocross, and mountain bike. It's really it's been a great partnership that we've got going up there. So one of the reasons we built the trail at Mount Dora was to provide an opportunity for our members who lived in Lake County and have been traveling for years and years and years up to Marion County. We'd like to keep some of those dollars here. We'd love to see something happen down in South Lake County as well. What it takes is a piece of property and a bunch of volunteers. Mountain bikers typically do all the work themselves, and we're not even usually looking for money. We're just looking for a place where we can go do what it is we want to do. The trails at Mount Dora were built, not a dollar came out of Mount Dora's budget. For the most part, the same thing on the Greenway. It's all volunteer hours. So we've got great MOUs put together with all the organizations that we deal with. Sorbo Orlando is a club that is also getting involved in the Central Florida area. They're managing a bunch of trails in the area. So I'll just leave you with that. There are a lot of mountain bikers in Lake County, a lot of mountain bikers in South Lake County. The opportunity to do something in South Lake would be phenomenal. The economic impacts are positive, and they're very, very strong. It's seen wherever you go, and there are a lot of places in this country that cater specifically to mountain bikers and have really turned their communities around by having those opportunities available. So that's all I've got for you. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them afterwards. I'll turn it back over to TJ. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. So there's that piece of property here in South Lake that we can target for this. It's great. I've been up to Santos and love it. And now I need to go try the Paisley one next. All right, before we do the wrap up of the summit itself, I want to invite a few people up. Becky Alfonso is going to be one of those, but I'd like to see Commissioner Parks, Mayor Pro Tem Goodgame, my chairman, come up please. Shannon, Kim, probably missing someone. Yes, Diane as well. We have a little awards presentation.
The Florida Bicycle Association annually recognizes people, communities, and agencies around the state for their outstanding contributions to building a bicycle-friendly Florida. 2 years ago, as ride director of Bike Florida, I made a phone call, sent a few emails, and had a sit-down with community leaders of South Lake County to discuss Claremont hosting 2 nights of our Bike Florida 7-day spring tour. It was all smiles, cooperation, and knowing that over 700 cyclists would feel welcome in this area. The weather was cold, but the warm reception of the Downtown Partnership, the South Lake Chamber, and Commissioner Sean Parks was indeed a comfort. I heard repeatedly that people wanted to come back to Claremont. South Lake County now holds a bicycle-friendly community bronze level designation from the League of American Bicyclists. It is my honor today to present South Lake County the Florida Bicycle Association 2014 Bicycle Friendly Community of the Year Award. I would like to make that presentation to the President of the South Lake Chamber of Commerce, Ray Sanfratello, and to the Chair of the South Lake County Sports and Tourism Department, Shannon Schmidt-Aldego.
Let's go over here. All right. Sorry, gotta do this. We're growing the screen out here. We can bring that person for a picture, okay? Just one more walk. Gotcha. Okay, can we get the rest of the group? Okay, you want to take a picture first? Yeah, it's all together. Then you can see them. Okay. Everybody will this way just a little bit.
That awkward moment when you're getting your picture taken and the whole audience is watching.
Everybody look good. You too, Sean.
All right, who's going to be Ray? Shannon, who's going to... Yay.
Just very briefly, I do want to say I'm so proud of the coalition that we put together back about 6 years ago to focus on sports and tourism. We have a regular forum that's been meeting for all that time. And the thing that's really, really important is the passion of the people that serve on that committee that have made the things happen in terms of our transportation network and all our sports and tourism efforts. So I thank all you folks for being part of that. And again, it makes me very proud to work with all the partners that made it all happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Shannon, your words? She's put a lot of work into this. Ray gets paid. Shannon was a volunteer.
I get paid.
Thank you so much, Becky, for the recognition. And really and truly, it takes a community. It takes all of our stakeholders working together in tandem for the shared vision with one another. So it really is a significant achievement for all of us today, and we definitely appreciate the recognition.
I think it's a great ending for today. Just to wrap it up, we've shown you what we have. We've shown you what's coming. We've shown you what's possible. We've talked about the economics. We've talked about the culture. We've talked about the people, the actual humans involved in making this happen. So I want to say thank you to the public who took an interest to come today. Please feel free to walk around the room and see all the displays. Thank you to all the presenters. We had a great plethora of information today. So thank you to each of you. One more hand for our presenters, please. And finally, I want to thank Mike Woods, Francis Franco, Pam Richmond for making the MPO what it is, and I appreciate everyone. Have lunch here in Claremont.